Okay, Tadam, you're all welcome to today's live stream. This is that Saturday most handsome Yekebo African nations currently pumping a physical husband. And as usual, I have beside me this hot babe that is looking at me, tripping for me, the most Yekebulicious husband of the year. I got that award from my grandma. Okay, over
Good
to
day,
you.
everyone. You're most welcome to this live stream. It's an honor having you join us. Oh, I want to say thank you to all that have been part of what we are doing. Thank you for stopping by. Yeah.
Okay. Today we are looking at a very interesting, I wanted to say interesting testimony. Today we are looking at a very interesting topic, and is such that today is loaded. We are going to be getting proper education from a rabbi, from a well, as in a well articulated rabbi that is going to be telling us and giving us, is going to be teaching us all that we need to know about Rastafari belief system and culture. And we're going to also be looking at the political influence of this belief system in their ecosystem or in our world. While we are also going to delve into the main issue that is around and across the globe nowadays. What is that issue? You all know that Africa is now technically a place to watch out for, because Africa is almost becoming a war zone, a war ground for the Western world, since they think that they can always play on the mindset of Africans to achieve their personal selfish interest. Today, we are going to be delving into that. We are going to be giving ourselves a word of caution, and we're also going to be using the best languages to talk to our African leaders so that they are not cajoled into the war that is not necessary. Just like, what's the name of that country? Just like what we saw that happened in Ukraine. They want to have a replay of the same thing in Africa. But we are going to tell them it's not going to be possible. You can't come to Africa, steal from the people, and now still jam our head together, making us to fight one another when we are supposed to be one people under God, thinking aright. So, without wasting time, I'm going to be introducing our rabbi to every one of you today. And I want to believe a whole lot is going to be explained to us because I have loads of questions. I can't wait to understand the Rastafari system of belief, the way they perceive the world, the way they talk to their God. I have so many questions that are indigenous. And let me not talk too much. I believe you also have questions. Okay, so with that being said, I want to welcome Ras Yahdon.
Greetings. Thank you, Setos. Setos
Whoa,
blog. Thank you, family. Thank you. How are you?
wow,
We
Shalom.
wow.
are so honored to
Uh,
have you, sir.
mhm.
We are so honored to have you.
And I'm so honored to be here. Thank you very much. And thank you to Emmanuel and Brother Alonso as well, for the invite. Thank you. Thank
Whoa,
you. Thank you.
whoa, whoa. So, New Be Me, we also want to welcome you on board. Let's pretend as if New Be Me is a new visitor to our page. New Be Me, are you there? Or is it Alonso that is there?
I am here, and Alonso is very, very, very close. And Brother Ras Yahdon, our teacher, thank
Hmm.
you for being here with our brothers and sisters here. So we're just going to sit back and listen. And Brother, I'll let him know. We'll listen. Brother Alonso is here with the youth, so he's going to be listening in as well.
Okay. Okay. And now let me just tell you, someone is already on ground. This is someone that has love for what's it called? For Bob Marley, for a lot of Rastafari culture, and that
Haile
is
Selassie.
that Haile Selassie was also interested in Haile Selassie, and I'm not surprised that he was already on ground. Who is that person? That's Chukudi. Chukudi is here. Jim Barak is here, and I know that he's going to be joining us also. Oh, and we have our beautiful lady Stacy Pruitt. In short, it's been a long time we have you here. So without wasting time, today I'm prepared for a lot of questions because I want to understand
Pardon,
a lot.
Mr. Cetros. I want to big up Claudia because Brother Yahdon, Claudia is
Yeah.
also listens to you too.
Wow. Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
Greetings,
Madam.
Claudia.
Madam Claudia, wherever you are,
We are waiting.
we are waiting for you because we discussed something about I think there was this period they were celebrating the birth of
Haile Selassie.
Haile Selassie, who happens to be one of the best African leader that is 100% times 100% human, that went overboard to flow accordingly with the people that are supposed to be his subjects. And today, I want to believe that our even delve into the life of Haile
Haile
Selassie,
Selassie.
give us what we can learn from. Basic principle is Royal Majesty Haile Selassie, what we can learn from him, and how we can turn out to be a better version of Haile Selassie in our little community, in our little country, and in our great continent of Africa. Because I have a lot to say. We are the black Jews that you guys need to watch out for.
You're welcome.
Oh, today is going to be loaded. The person I want to mention now, oh my goodness. See, let me give heads up to our rabbi, Ras Yahdon. The
Yes.
person I'm talking about now, she is so articulate. Everything you are saying, she's going to ask the right questions. She asks
Uh-oh.
The origin.
she's going to, she wants to know the
Uh-oh.
origin. She
No, no,
wants to
no.
know everything, and she's so
She has-
detailed. She's
yes.
a mother. So
She's a grandma.
she's not a mother in Israel. She's a mother in Africa. And that is Madam Olaomi. She says, hello, everyone. Good to have the rabbi here to enlighten on the Rastafari movement. So without talking too much, Ras, Ras Yahdon,
Yes.
we are blessed to have you.
Yes, sir.
We are so blessed to have you. Before you start saying anything, we are so blessed to have you. Your look, your hair, everything about you is giving me what I call the natural feel of the African people, that the way God created us was just so much. So I'm going to give you the platform. I want you to give us this first answer. What is Rastafari culture to a layman like us? Rastafari culture and movement. What is it all about?
Okay. There was whenever I'm asked this question, there's a book that I had read some years ago by a author. It's called Roots of Rastafari. The Roots of Rastafari. Her name is Virginia Lee Jacobs. She says in this particular book, she says, many people have heard Rastafari is a name that many people have heard, but very few really understand, what or who Rastafari is. I'm paraphrasing it very rough. I'm looking for the book. I got a lot of books right here. We're trying to fix up the office. I like to share a little excerpt from this particular book, but basically she said that people don't know whether Rastafari is a man or a movement. And she states that the answer is actually both. It's both a man and a movement. But the best way to understand who or what Rastafari is to hear a speech and to listen to the words of the speech by His Imperial Majesty Kadamawi Haile Selassie I of Ethiopia. And that was, I think, the speech that it was until the philosophy speech. I think ones know this, Bob Marley, but Haile Selassie, he did the song, the war song, that popularized what His Majesty said to the United Nations in 1963, if I'm correct. It was 1963. What's interesting, he spoke to the League of Nations in 1936. So there's a poster, a meme that's out there where it has His Imperial Majesty before the League of Nations, League of European Nations back in the 30s because of what was going on then. And then he had spoke in 1963 to another international body of nations. This is one of the first times in world history that we can know of or historically recorded where we had a majority of nations gathered together, the leading world nation, the European so-called nations gathered together. So I would answer that by stating that Rastafari is the movement, truly is the movement of the man, Rastafari Mekonnen, who's also known as Haile Selassie I, or in the Amharic Edamawi Haile Selassie I. So I would say the best way to know is the words and the teaching and the life of Haile Selassie I, who is the Rastafari of the Rastafari. So go to the root. Jamaica becomes a lighthouse. We have to give credit where credit is due. As Bible has a prophecy concerning, many people interpret this as the return of Christ or of Jesus, with this as the lightning, the Son of Man, actually, prophecy. As lightning strikes shine from the east to the west, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. And as we look into the history, we see that back in the 20s, it was pro-Black and African-minded Black people in the Americas and the Caribbean that was looking to Africa. Particularly, there was Reverend James Morris Webb. We know about Marcus Messiah Garvey, yes, and he is John the Baptist of the movement. And when we say John the Baptist, we have to understand John the Baptist, in the Bible. John the Baptist was a proclaimer, but then John the Baptist a little later got offended. We see this in Matthew chapter 11. He got offended, Not to get into that detail right now, but going before Marcus Garvey, there was Reverend James Morris Webb. He said, look to Africa where a Black man will be crowned king. In him, you will find the Redeemer. This is the words that was first proclaimed. Now, of course, people might look at this from a religious or a Christian perspective. But if we look into the Bible, we recognize that whenever a people or a person was either sold into slavery or sold into debt servitude, like if I owed you money and I could not pay it, right? And the elders in the community said, yes, you do owe Sethros money and you can't pay it. Can you get any money? No, I can't. So I have to work it off, right? And maybe I have to work for many years, a long time. And I'm away from my family. My family is suffering because I have this debt that I can't pay off, right? One of my one of my relatives, my relations may come along and say, you know what? I'm his brother. I'm his cousin. I can pay the debt. And this one will pay the debt. And by paying that debt would basically kind of redeem that person, buy them back. Literally, it's a sense of buying back. So Reverend James Morris Webb, who was a Black American, African American, Chicago, some people call him a mystic, but he was actually a reverend. And he was like pro-African, pro-Black, and pro-biblical connection to who we are as a people at home and abroad. And he had made this proclamation. And it said that when Marcus Messiah Garvey came to America to continue the movement they started in Jamaica, he saw all these pro-Black and pro-African movements over here. And he got great inspiration because this is what he was seeking to bring to his people in Jamaica. But there was more like, I can say, the provision, the place for that seed to really grow. Right? And it grew here and it gathered momentum, and that became the UNIA, this particular movement. And it was very focused on Ethiopia and Ethiopianism. I don't know if you've heard about Ethiopia and Ethiopianism, but Ethiopianism was focused on Ethiopia, but looking at the whole continent as being Ethiopia. We see old maps that are being distributed nowadays, and people are finding these old maps. where it's basically stating that the continent before like 1600s or so was called Ethiopia. In fact, they
Mm.
have Upper Ethiopia and Lower Ethiopia. You know what I mean? Which is very interesting within a ancient Egyptian, upper and lower, because of terrain. Because like the East has more mountains generally, right, than the West. Am I correct with that? That the East of Africa has more mountains, generally speaking, than West Africa.
Yeah, I think so.
So that might be one of the reasons, because upper would be like more land, like highlands and mountains, and then you have like the plain, and you have like the Sahel, for example. That kind of leads to the subject matter, concerning what's going on today in Africa. But not to be too long-winded with this, basically, Rastafari is the movement of the man, Rastafari, as he was known in the 1920s before the coronation, Kedemon with Haile Selassie. This is what I would say in its root, but the movement has gone through a lot of changes. Just like a child is born and is a baby, and then the child grows and becomes, like goes through even teenage years. You know what I mean? And sometimes these teenage years are rebellious years. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Where all the instructions of the parent, you know, not all of it, but a lot of it is either not rejected, but kind of going against. Like many of us, we grew up whatever kind of background, and if we had so-called good parents, who looked out for us and sheltered us, when we got free, so to emancipated, so to speak, we started to do whatever we wanted to do. So the movement then and the movement now is not exactly one and the same. You know what I mean? Has gone through changes, basically. And that's why I want to just say right there on that. I hope I haven't been too long-winded, but basically, the best way
No,
to
you,
understand who or what Rastafari is it a man or a movement? It's the movement of this particular man who was looked to, hold on for a moment, my sister Emmanuel, who was looked to within Ethiopia, right? Within Ethiopia as a messianic sort of a figure before
Mm.
Jamaica. I think this is the part that needs to be put out. When I say a messianic figure, I have this particular. I'll send a copy to Sister Emmanuel, and she can send a copy to you. This is
Wow.
some documents from the 1920s by certain religious church people who was looking. Okay, let me put it like this. Back in those days, Ethiopia and certain Ethiopians were looking for the one. They was looking for
Mm.
somebody who was the one, someone who could unite and really bring Black people and Ethiopia and Africans forward. And when Haile Selassie, before coronation as Rastafari in the 1920s, and the works that he was doing in Ethiopia, the civil servant role. He was a civil servant. When I say civil servant, he was a part of a monarchy, but he was serving the people. You know what I mean? He was seeking to improve different things within different communities. He was a governor. You know what I mean? And his improvements was righteous improvements. Many times he went against his own class, his own royalist class, incurring their animosities. But the people clearly saw that this was a man that was not after his own best interests, but after the best interests of his people. So some of the religious folks, right? When I say religious folks, some of the clerics and debtors and others, they started to see within him this this presence of the kingdom of God and of a change from what Africa and Ethiopia had gone through. And sure enough, as history would testify, His Imperial Majesty was that change, for Africa, for Ethiopia first. And then after Ethiopia was more assured of her freeness, since many Africans looked to Ethiopia because that was the only place that did not go through the depths of colonization as other places went through, then he turned his attention to other areas along with other leaders, Kwame Nkrumah, with the younger generation, and this caused that first phase of African liberation to be so successful. I say first phase, because the OAU was the first phase. Many might have thought it was the final phase, But this thing that Africa and Black people have gone through is layered. You know what I mean? It's layered. It didn't happen just overnight. It happened over hundreds of years. One might even speculate thousands of years. You know what I mean? So it's a work that goes on from generation to generation. Sadly, we have a generation gap because of education and the lack of education and the lack of historical literacy and historical understanding of true history on the continent of Africa and even out here on social media. There's a lot of things circulating in social media that are not historically right and accurate that concerns Rastafari. And of course, that concerns Africa and Ethiopia in particular as well. But I'll yield on that right now, my brother Setros. Thank you.
Whoa, I think we are going to have a whole lot of clarity about Rastafari today because, one, I must confess that we are able to hear you clearly. You speak like one of
Of
us,
course,
as
yes.
one, not like as one of us, because I was thinking I'll be having a constraint to hear you, but I can hear you clearly and we can understand you because you are talking with facts and figures. We really appreciate you for that. Now, I would want you to be able to answer some questions that might look stupid, but it will also help our audience to clarify how they've been seeing Rastafari before now, this Rastafari movement, because here in this part of the world, especially Nigeria, growing up, there is this assumption. I don't know where they got it from that we don't even call it Rastafari. It was New Being Me that made us to understand that it is not Rastafarian, but Rastafari. what
Mm,
we what we used to get how we used to classify that belief system is Rastafarian. And when we what make us to call anybody Rastafarian, once we see anybody that has dreadlock, we call them, oh, that's a Rastafarian. The next thing we hear is Bomboglat. So that has been a misconception on our part here. And they look at Rastafarians as followers of Bob Marley. It
mm,
was, you won't believe this, it was after I graduated from the university and I'm married that I now discover there is a great human being that lived amidst us, a great prophet that lived amidst us, a great leader that lived amidst us, a great exemplary life that lived amidst us as human, that is called His Royal Majesty Haile Selassie. All the while, once they are talking about Rastafarian, what we look at, oh, these are the followers of Bob Marley.
mm, mm.
So I want Alonso to help our audience that might be listening to this to clear that area where we now drafted Rastafarian into Bob Marley followers. Let him clear that. Then you, Rabbi, you do justice to that after Alonso. Alonso, over
Good,
to you.
good.
Take Kylie out of here.
What am I
Sorry, that's our
there's
baby.
it's the children in the background. I mean, uh
Uh,
what I don't know what to say because there's basically so much to say, but here's an example of like the significance of this person and those in the West. Um a man from Chicago, he realized that because of the 1904 like business or commerce treaty that Ethiopia had with the US, this black man is named Robert, Abdullah. He realized that it would be better off to be an Ethiopian citizen because under the treaty, Ethiopian individuals doing commerce or trade in the U.S. had a higher level of status than a regular black person in the United States in during the 1915, so with the Jim Crow laws and stuff like that. So that led this man Attila to recognize the significance of the soon to be crowned king of kings, and how like actually becoming a citizen of this nation would grant them better treatment than being a citizen of the US. Now let me just say that because a lot of the a child must develop, and it takes time. So one crawls, then walks, then runs. So too is the movement. But since I'm younger, I'll take the responsibility of being immature. And let me just say that as far as for Marcus Garvey, the biggest blessing that God ever gave him is that he passed away before the day that the Emperor of Ethiopia re-entered his land, and therefore Marcus Garvey did not experience the humiliation of having been proven faithless and completely incorrect in regards to all the things that he had spoken negatively about His Imperial Majesty. Now, I'm not trying to cause confusion in the movement, but I'm trying to force ones to let go of the things that have not functioned and have not worked for our own good, and look to other sources that were much more involved with Rastafari, that were much more committed, much more faithful, and then we can learn about people that did things, that went places, that participated, that became more to this truth than the couple of characters that we seem to just attribute all success to, and that in great part that's Marcus Garvey. So I'm being the rude younger guy, and I'm just putting that out there, just so. But let me just share, and this is all I'll say after this, because my thoughts are kind of just like going left and right. This is what John F. Kennedy had to say at welcoming His Imperial Majesty. So this is for all of Africa. President Kennedy says, "Ladies and gentlemen, I know I speak on behalf of all my fellow Americans in welcoming His Imperial Majesty back to the United States. In welcoming His Majesty, we honor not only a distinguished leader of his country and a distinguished world figure, but we also welcome a man whose place in history is already assured. His memorable and distinctive appearance before the League of Nations in the mid-30s, which so stirred the conscience of the world, was supported prior to that by Athens, and has been supported in its high hopes by the consistent support which His Imperial Majesty has given to those efforts since the end of the Second World War to associate the free nations together by common enterprises. Support to the efforts in Korea, his support of the most recent effort in the Congo, the strong support he has given to the United States, and perhaps most celebrated of all, his leadership in building a community of free and independent states in Africa. Since His Majesty visited the United States nearly a decade ago, we have seen one of the most extraordinary revolutions in history, and that has been the appearance on the world scene of 29 independent countries in the short space of less than 10 years, including over 150 million people. The conference recently held in His Majesty's capital served, I think, to bring together in a great cooperative movement the people of most of these countries. And that success and the success of that conference was due in no small part to the leadership of our distinguished guest. Therefore, for what he has done for his people, his efforts to move his country forward and throughout the world, and to provide a better life for its people, and his efforts throughout the world, which stretch back over 30 or 40 years. For all of this, Your Majesty, we take the greatest pride in welcoming you here. You do us honor, and I can assure you that there is no guest that we will receive in this country that will give us a greater sense of livelier pride and satisfaction to the American people than your presence here today, Your Majesty, you're most welcome.
Hmm.
This is a
Wow.
person we know very little about and has done much for all. You know, I mean, just putting that out there. This is what President Kennedy said.
Mm.
That,
About
that, that that's serious then. Okay.
and just to add to that right there, if we're correct, we did a video, we did the math on it. But I'll just say about 40 or so days, I think that was, before he was assassinated, before Kennedy was assassinated. Is that last part there that the brother, thank you, Ras Alonso, that he read where it says, his place in history is assured, and for a president of the United States to be given credit to, this little man, right? But great man, from Africa, was something that the politics of the time, one has to really take time to look at the politics, because we can read about historical events, but we don't read about what was going on around these events. You know what I mean? Why was these things significant? You know what I'm saying? It's like the Trojan horse. Why was the Trojan horse significant? One have to understand that the people of Troy, they worship horses. You know what I'm saying? So therefore, this was significant that this Trojan horse would be something. So with Kennedy saying what he said, it was almost like a Trojan horse. That's why I make the analogy right there, that they let this in, and this began to help to change perceptions of things. For Kennedy to be given such, not just praise, but accurate praise to this man from Ethiopia, that even many ones and ones probably knew of him, but not really knew, like you asked, who is this man? This is the book right here. I don't know if you can see this particular book. It's an old copy I had for some years.
Roots of
Rastafari.
Rastafari.
Yes, and this book is a small book, as the brothers from Jamaica might say. It's Lickle Batalawa. That's it, like this small, like Tinishkin Tilikno. It's like small, but it's very big. It's a small book, but it does summarize a lot of things. And as far as Bob Marley, it does bring Bob Marley in the beginning of the book, but Bob Marley was a follower, and that's in that sense. We could say a follower or a disciple, or the word Christian is said to mean little Christ. I don't know if you ever come across that Christian is said to mean like little Christ. And at
Yes.
first it was a derisive or a disrespectful name that others who saw these people who proclaimed such things about a so-called crucified Jewish leader, when they asked, well, where's your leader? Where's your God? Where's this Christ? The early Christians would say, when you see me, you see Christ. I am not the Jesus Christus, Jesus Christ, but he is in me. You know what I mean? There was a perception of this intimacy, this oneness, so therefore when they say these guys are Christianoids, that's the Greek Christianoids, they are Christians, it would say they are little Christ. So when we apply the same principles to Rastafari, right, it basically is saying that we are like little Rastafaris, in a sense. We're to be little Rastafari in our neck of the woods. So wherever we are at, whatever we're able, it's like the sun shines and the rays go everywhere. But we only get a few rays. When the sun is shining, where you're at, you get a few rays. Somebody over in the next country gets some rays over there. But you work with your rays. You walk in the light while the light is with you. So I just wanted to share that right there, that we are little Rastafari, to say, right? And Bob Marley, he was also a little Rastafari, as Adamawi Haile Selassie is the Rastafari. And this is why he is so maybe significant, and even ones look to him, because he was able to articulate certain principles and certain key principles, pillars to the rest of others seeking this light. But then sometimes there can be, we can focus on the disciple, more than, the master. Even when I say Rastafari Rabbi, it was to say that Rastafari, within a Hebrew Judeo-Christian context, for we as Black people, as African Shemitic people, he is our rabbi. He is our leader, and we are his disciples. And as Jesus Christ says, it's enough for the disciple to be as their master, not greater
Mm,
than their master. You know what I mean? It's
mm,
enough for, like, I'm your teacher, I could teach you how to master this. You should not just seek to be greater than me. You should seek to learn what I'm teaching you.
mm.
You know what I mean? So that we all may be one. But anyway, your next question, Cetros. I want to get the next question. I love this right here. Yes. Mm-hmm.
I think I think you and Alonso, you are a perfect match. We are so blessed to have you on board. Even Madam Claudia is joining us from the Caribbean island, and she said, "Give thanks, my beloved brothers, for being on this live chat." This is one of the chats. This is one of the live stream we've been waiting for. As in, we are so glad that we are having you guys on ground now. Now, with that being said, I move to the next question. The next, while you were trying to explain, I'll give answer to the to the last question. You were saying, from what I can get, is that it's like the master is His Royal Majesty, Haile Selassie. Now, Bob Marley is just a follower and a disciple. But why we got it, I wouldn't say we got it wrong. Why we got it like, or maybe it's Bob Marley that is the pioneer of the group, is that he was such a disciple that he so much exemplified the characters of His Royal Highness Haile Selassie,
Agreed. Agreed.
because I spent time to look at the lifestyle of Bob Marley, read through his lifestyle, that he was even a mediator to the last point of his life. He
Mm-hmm.
was a mediator to the core. And when I also looked at, did a little research about His Royal Highness Haile Selassie, he is His Royal Majesty Haile Selassie, I discovered that he was also a mediator to the highest core, even to the point that two countries that were at the verge of war, he
Mm.
went in between them when everyone will go off. That's a learning point to me, to
So what is
Africa,
happening now?
and
Are
to
you
what
speaking
is
about, uh,
Africa
uh,
now.
uh, not to cut you, but are you speaking about Biafra? Biafra?
okay. What is happening in Africa now?
No. Are you speaking about
Uh,
Biafra? The Biafra, the mediation
no.
between the two parties in the, West Africa, Biafra. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it
Uh,
correctly.
Okay, you are even pronouncing it correctly. It's not Biafra that I'm talking of. There was this issue that were, I've
Mm.
forgotten these particular countries. Now, there were two countries that were at the verge of war. They were already at the battle. The battle line was drawn already.
Mm.
His,
Mm.
His Royal Majesty Haile Selassie flew into that battleground and spoke with both parties, and the war they were about going to was stopped. So now, when I did a little research about Bob Marley, down till the point of death, even when it was risky for his life, he went back to Jamaica to settle issues between rival groups.
Mm.
So when you were now talking of, oh, that he was actually a disciple, I can see that really, because he exemplified the lifestyle of his master. Now, this next question is like a bomb.
Oh.
Alonso and uh, our rabbi, would you say Jesus, how will you classify Jesus and Haile Selassie? Are they two individuals, or is Haile Selassie like the
The new,
Jesus of
the
Africa?
Messiah.
while the other Jesus is the Jesus of the West. I want that part to be clear. I want that part to
Mm.
be clear.
Very, very good. That is that is a bomb. That's why I'll point at this book again. I'll point at this book again. But I think the best. Let me see if I can find this particular. I want to find the autobiography. Give me a moment to find the autobiography because Massey says something in the first part of the autobiography. I don't know if you know about his
Okay.
autobiography, the autobiography of Haile Selassie.
Ah,
My brother,
Amujale.
huh?
Wow. Hello. We need to blow the trumpet here. We need to blow the trumpet here. The internet is busting. Woo, 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 woo.
Don't bust the
We are
internet.
Hello
Okay.
to the panel.
we have our own very well-read historian by
Mr.
name Mr. Amujale.
Amujale. The guy just
He
started.
talks with facts and figures, and don't let me talk too much. Mr. Amujale, you are welcome on board
Good evening,
because
sir.
tonight we are going to learn a lot. We are going to learn a lot. I'm so happy seeing you here. Now, while we wait for
The Reverend.
the rabbi, Mr. Amujale,
What do you have to say?
what is your opinion about the Rastafari culture and
The war
belief
in
system
Africa
and the
now.
war in Africa?
Would the as in, if we have adopted the Rastafari culture, would we be seeing what we're seeing now that is happening in Sudan, that is happening in Niger,
Niger,
that is about happening in
that is
Niger,
about happening even in Nigeria now.
Nigeria now?
The thing about like I work with Jara Safari. See, um, I mean, like I work with the Rastafarians, no doubt. Even though I reserve my have reservations about the philosophy, but generally they're about black power and stuff like that. So yeah. But now, in terms of Selassie, the Lion of Judah. Um, The line of Judah is completely different to Jesus. I look at the line of Judah as the black Jesus. You see, so in that sense, is the way I look at the philosophy about Jesus and all that is I put it aside when I'm talking about Haile Selassie because it's bigger than anyone basically. The movement because it actually helps in the West, the diaspora. The Rastafarian movement is crucial in the diaspora. So, regardless of the fact that we may not agree with the philosophy, but the push, the oomph behind the Rastafarian movement is quite is respectable. So, in that sense, yes, we are all for that. But there is something to it in the sense of the fact that the philosophy. So we don't necessarily have to adopt the philosophy, but what we can do, we can learn from how the Rastafarian culture, how they move, how the advantages that came about with it, the fact that they are for each other. There's a lot of unity. I mean, there's so much to learn from that culture.
Okay, good, good. So happy to have you, Mr. Mujale. Now, we have so much to learn from the Rastafarian culture, of which, let me tell you, the first time I spent like about some hours researching into the lifestyle of His Royal Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie. That was when I discovered that I might actually be a disciple that has never known that I have a master that lived some years back, because his lifestyle of selfless service to even people that are below him, people that are supposed to be his subjects, and it's not just like playing high up there and low them there, but he was ready even with the least of resources. He wanted to ensure that his people are not subjected to slavery. We are going to come into that part
That's
because
right.
that is what is lacking in Africa now.
Yes.
Unlike His Royal Majesty's lifestyle of making sure that with the weakest weapon that was available in Ethiopia then, which to me, I grabbed something from the rabbi today, that Ethiopia was referred to as Africa,
That's right.
was referred to as the whole of Africa in the
Yes,
ancient time. And I
that's right.
also did a little bit of research. There is a place in Ijebu-Ode, which is the western part of Nigeria. I saw that documentary that claimed that the Queen of Sheba that visited Solomon actually emanated from Ijebu-Ode, a place in Ijebu, and
Yes,
went over there to pay a visit to Solomon, and alongside a lot of things happened that
right. Can I chime into that? You know, first of all, I just want to reiterate Solomon is a fictional character, right? Let's put that out there. Now, the queen that they were talking about is, I think, it's something like Irekonibud or something like that, something of that sort.
The Queen
Um,
of Sheba.
but
the Queen of
yes, so but something like Irekonibud or something of that nature. And the thing is that the point that is actually interesting from that is that it's like the returning queen. Yes. So what does that tell you? That tells us that if she's returning, that means that she left from here to begin with. No, that means that
She-
she she must to be returning means that she left here. She left from Igabodi to return to Igabodi. It's not that
she
it's not the other
actually,
way around. Hmm?
Amuja, she
Yes.
actually returned back.
Yes. That's what.
They showed to us a burial ground
Yeah,
in
but
that
what I'm saying, if she's
document.
returning, I'm that she left from Djibouti, yes,
She left
exactly.
from
Then I'm that she's older than where she's older than where she returned from,
okay,
right? Um,
okay.
as in,
So
so I mean that supports the notion that Africans, I mean,
we've
traveled,
been
that they weren't
we've been
stagnant. Yeah.
wow. So we've been here all the while. So we were not discovered. Breaking news. We were not discovered by Mongo Park.
Exactly, exactly.
We've been here all the while. And now I'm going to be welcoming Chukudi. Chukudi,
Greetings, everyone. Greetings.
it's nice having you on ground because I was 100% sure that immediately you hear Rastafari, you are going to be on ground. And thank God you did not disappoint me because
I
Yes,
you and
did.
I,
yes,
you and I know
yes,
how we enjoy Bob Marley.
very much so. Bob Marley changed my life as a person. He
Whoa.
has, like once he said, "He who feels it knows it," and that's what his voice did to us. Uh, he is such a spiritual, enlightened being that it's obvious to the rest of the whole world knows his name. He is a person that manifests truth and hope in a person's heart when you listen to his music. Uh, Everybody that is speaking here has been so eloquent about making such great, obvious colonialization. My question was to the rabbi earlier. Well, I don't know, and I'm seriously, I don't know. I just don't know how what the term Zionism means in the
Wow.
Rastafarian culture, because I also know the Judeo-Christian aspect has Zionism in it. So I don't know. I'm wanting to learn that.
Okay,
Very good
okay.
question. Very.
Ve-
May I say
Very good.
second? Go.
Okay,
Mm,
okay. Very good question. You're going to answer that question. But
mm,
prior to that, I want you to answer so that I don't skip any question because of our audience.
Mm-hmm.
We have 3 questions pending. Jim dropped one before. I'm going to drop that too. But now, comparison between Jesus, the
And
question I asked before.
mhm.
Yeah, so you can go now. And
Okay. Give thanks. That is the brother that came out and get your name, but thank you. You mentioned about Solomon as a fictional figure. I would,
Amujade.
uh, huh?
Amujade. Just like
his name is
move.
Abuja.
It's like
Abu Jali.
Abu Jani.
Abu
Abu
Jali.
Jani.
Amuja.
Uh, mu,
Amuja.
ja.
Le.
Amuja.
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 Yes.
Amuja.
Amuja. Le.
Amuja. Okay, Amuja. Thank you. So that particular point, we can take that up again, but sometimes real people get fictionalized, real people get mythologicalized. We have this, even we as African people or coming from the African experience, a lot of our history among other people, as they receive it, the truth of it sometimes becomes fictionalized or legendary. We're real people, but how they look at us. You know, it's almost like somebody that looks at America, that hasn't been to America, they have all these ideas from TV and everything else. But when they really come to, say, America or the West, they get the real reality. But to the question, we'll pick up on that, but I thank you for your comment right there, and very, very insightful. I'm going to go to Matthew 10:41, where it says, just a brief one verse, he that receiveth a prophet in the name of a prophet shall receive a prophet's reward. And he that receiveth a righteous man in the name of a righteous man shall receive a righteous man's reward. So this is to the question about is Haile Selassie, I want to say the Jesus in that sense, since Jesus, Yeshua, right, of Nazareth was declared to be the Messiah. The Messiah called Christ is a role within the Hebrew biblical culture that is synonymous with, like we say, election, inauguration, or like we place hands on somebody, you know, to say that you will be our leader or you will be this one. You know what I mean? So the Messiah is like the anointing is like a title. So he was Jesus Christ, whether one wants to say he's fictionalized or not, but according to the narrative, Yeshua was the one for that time, right? He even said that you shall see me, but not see me, you know, in prophesizing a later advent. So many of us, we see Haile Selassie to be the Christ or the anointed, the Messiah of this time, right? Of this time for us. We don't dismiss Jesus or even Moses. When you mention mediator, the people of Israel in Exodus chapter 20, when according to what is written, not requiring faith, but just literary comprehension, according to what is written in Exodus chapter 20, the Lord God speaks to the children of Israel, speak the 10 commandments, the 10 words. The people hear this and they say, we can't hear God speak. Moses, you be our mediator, and whatever God says to you, we will hear and we will do. So Moses becomes the mediator. And then we hear from Christians, according to the Bible, that Jesus, Yeshua, becomes the mediator of a new covenant. And he even says that, you know, that there is still more to come, the second advent, as we see. So we see Haile Selassie as being this second advent for us people that identify ourselves with the biblical narrative, either from a spirituality, a religious belief, or even many of us actually say we are those particular people.
Okay, but on the evangelical Zionism that's in the Christian Judeo
I'm gonna get to that.
churches.
I'm gonna get to that.
Okay.
No, I'm gonna get to that. I just want to lay the basis because on the whole point about the name Rastafari, right? Rastafari, right? Which means head to be respected or feared or reverenced. Head to be respected, feared, or reverenced. Teferi can mean either or. Ras is a word literally that means head, but as a title, it means like a prince or like a sovereign, but literally means head and self in the language. So I want to
Okay.
point out the name because the name is the main thing. The Rastafari is that name. Even though he became Kedemawi Haile Selassie, when he was anointed and coronated, 72 nations, 1930, we still hold to name Rastafari because that's when the lightning shone from the east, from Africa to the west, and was picked up by various ones and became what we know. Like Jamaica becomes very important because Jamaica found that way to make the music, make the music and the culture, and was consistent with it. It's like when God says he would turn to the poor people. They were the poor people, like Jamaica's like down south used to be, or parts of Africa, you know what I mean? And therefore, they were not so much corrupted by modernism and the different social changes, so they could keep that message, that we have in the music, the roots in the reggae music. Now, Zionism, on the word Zionism, I just did a meme. I got to share this with ones. No, I just did a meme. Last night we was on the podcast at the 46 sabbatical study where we go through like the Torah reading, studies and everything. And I had shared a meme, and I just want to get this meme right here. Give me one particular moment. I want to get the exact words. I want you to hear. Okay, my brother actually updated. Somebody updated. It says Zion. I don't know if you can. You might not be able to see this on the phone so clearly. So I'll read it. Zion, not Zionist, and we put the $ after, for the
Okay.
S. Not Zion-ism. Rastafari used to say it's not isms and schism. We're not dealing with ism
Right.
and schism. So when they say Rastafarian, my elders used to say Rastafari and who? And I didn't get it at first. They say Rastafarian. Well, they say we're Rastafarian, and the elder would say Rastafari and who? That little and, because we want to be true to the name. His name is Rastafari. His name is not Rasta, even though it becomes a byword. It's not Rastafarian, and it's definitely not Rastafarianism, right? So we said Zion, not Zionist, not Zionism. Say no
Okay.
to isms, no to schisms. And at the bottom, we say learn more, learn the truth about the African Zion. Now,
That's
what
right.
is
That's
Zion?
what I want to learn from you.
Okay, what is Zion? What is Zion? Just ask any Christian because Christians and people who are religious into the Bible, ask them, what is
has something
Zion?
to do with Israel.
No, but what is Zion according to the Bible? Because listen, I'm not going to believe a Christian or a Jew if they tell me that, well, their belief is based on this book, the Bible, or even the Torah, and I read the Torah and I see a different definition in the Torah than what I hear come out their mouth. What was
Okay.
Zion? What's the first use of Zion? Zion was the castle of David that David, according to the biblical narrative, captured and took from a group of people called the Jebusites that were in Jerusalem. He took this castle because the Israelites were told to drive out the former occupants, so forth and so on. So he took this castle, and the castle was called Zion. The castle of David. In other
Okay.
words, like a house, a
Well,
fortress. It's called
um,
Zion, and it
can I
was
come
on a
in and
hill,
disappear?
and that hill was called Zion. Now, why is that important? Because God, according to the Bible, the Lord Yahweh Eloheinu, Jehovah made a promise with David that he would have a covenant with David, and from David's lineage would come this Messiah, would come this great deliverance, this great one would come from his lineage. So Zion,
Rabbi, 1 second, 1 second. You said that David got this castle from the Jebusites or something like that. Is that right?
according to the Bible, yes.
Right. So I just want to say one thing. That I've had this argument with some of my peers in the
I know where
past.
you're
The
going. Go ahead.
Jebusites are not related to the Jebu. I just want to make that clear. The Jebu are not. They did not come from the Jebusites or whatever. So just to make that clear.
Okay,
Okay.
I like to chop it up with you. I definitely want to chop it up with you, where we can go into these particular pressure points. You know, like when you said Solomon fictional, like to get into that. When you say it's not from the Jebusites, like to get into that. But according to the evidence, because I could point to the receipt of the Bible, the scripture, get some ancient texts. If you can point to other evidence, I'm willing to look at it. But just for the
No,
brother and others to
I mean, have you
understand,
got the
keep in mind
original ones though?
what
Hold
happened.
on a little bit. Please
Mm.
hold on. I want, because we are learning. I'm with my pen and I'm jotting a
Yeah,
whole
yeah,
lot
yeah, yeah,
down.
yeah.
So that,
Yeah, but here's valid points because not to cut you, Setros, there are alternative. See, I'm not like some of the other brothers or other ones. I like to take on the conflict. I like to smoke. In other words, if you have some other
Yeah.
points, you know, and you're saying because you're saying Solomon's fictional. I've heard that before.
It is fictional.
Whoa,
There's
whoa, whoa,
nobody.
whoa, whoa, whoa. Do you
Yeah.
really know that? Have you looked at
Yes,
all the evidence?
100%.
Have you looked at all the evidence? It's your
There
belief.
is no
It's your
evidence to look
belief.
at.
But it's
There
your
is no
belief
evidence to look
he's
at.
fictional.
It's all smokes and mirrors.
It's your
Right.
belief he's fictional. Listen, you say he's fictional. I'm not running from the fact that there's fact to Solomon, but
Yeah,
it's your
if you can
belief.
prove it, otherwise I'm listening. I'm all ears. I mean, if you can
I
show
know,
me any
I know.
evidence
You
of,
want some? I
for
know. Okay,
instance,
Ras,
I can tell you that
okay, let me
I can show
hold
you
on.
evidence of my parents, right?
Okay,
And I can
hold on.
show you where they were laid. I can give
Hello,
you,
everyone.
like, yeah,
Amujali. Hello,
yes,
everyone. Let me quickly state
you
this.
see, that's
I
one
know
of the
that,
problems. That's one of the
Rabbi.
problems here. That's one of the problems here. Ethiopia has a tradition and a culture, and even a lot of evidence that's very old. They were able to maintain themselves against Europeans because they held to a particular culture, a particular moray that
Right.
was not practiced elsewhere. And then we say that the very thing they held to was fiction, but yet it helped them to prevent colonialism. That means maybe you should adopt a little bit of fiction. How about that?
no, not really, not necessarily.
No. How
Like,
about that? I mean, in the real world,
Okay,
if somebody says I believe in Pokemon, and you said you believe in something that's real, but my Pokemon belief prevents me from being colonized, I would think about maybe the principles of Pokemon at least. You know, because
yeah,
whatever I'm working with has not worked. Let me finish this little exhibit on Zion. I mentioned the
yeah.
Jebusites. Take notes
okay.
on it.
Rabbi,
Take notes
Rabbi,
on that.
please.
I would like to
If,
chop it up. I like to get into that, but I don't want to be interrupted halfway in what I'm saying right here.
Rabbi,
You know,
Rabbi.
on just explaining from a
Okay,
biblical perspective, and also connecting the Ethiopian history, right? That they testified to. You know what I mean? Tell the Ethiopians that Solomon and Zion, tell Haile Selassie that Zion is not real or that Solomon is not real. You know, don't
Right.
tell me that.
Ras
You know?
Yahdon.
Yeah.
Hello, let's hold on a bit. Let me quickly state clearly here. Whenever anyone is talking, please, because I'm with my pen and paper,
I know, I want
and
to finish.
we have youth that we are passing this knowledge to here in Africa. So we don't want any interruption. Let one person finish up with what is saying. If you have what's it called, you can give us a hands up, then we give you your slots for you to talk so that we are able to learn. And let me quickly state this. Rabbi didn't get part of what Amujale was saying. In Nigeria, there is a tribe that is called the Ijebus.
Yes.
That tribe,
I'm familiar.
that tribe, some people usually misconstrue them for the Jebusites. Now,
Mm.
the Jebus, those are my mother's side. That's why I'm very detailed about
Great
the
people.
Jebus, that we can also call the Jebusites in Nigeria, are from the western part of Nigeria. They are different from the Jebusites of the Israelis. So Amujale
Mhm.
was simply pointing your attention to the fact that it will not be real, because some people are now preaching that Jebusite that was being mentioned in the Bible are
Yeah,
the
I get what you're saying.
Jebus in Nigeria, which
Exactly.
totally wrong. It's not the
Okay.
Exactly.
Jebus in Nigeria. The
Teach.
Jebusites are the Israelis that are there. So please, we have a
Teach.
platform now. Let's enjoy the minutes that is giving us clarity on his talk. So if you have any question, you ask your question and we'll learn from that. Okay, over to you, Rabbi.
Apologies, my brother,
Yes.
if I misconstrued, but I was familiar with some of those, and as the host said, I don't confound those two. I was just talking about the biblical narrative in order to explain what the Ethiopian view and our view as Rastafari who are informed of Zion is, as distinct from Zionism and Zionists. Zionism and Zionists is something that basically is a 20th century, roughly a 20th century political invention. What I'm speaking about is a biblical and an ancient tradition that has become a part of historical Ethiopian, how can you say, some Ethiopian culture that leads up to His Majesty. I was explaining that Zion was a castle, according to the biblical narrative, that was captured by David.
Right. It got hijacked. Is that correct?
Huh?
Did Zion? They turned Zion into Zionism, meaning they hijacked it.
But exactly, because also the European Jews were heavily studying Africa. In fact, they had wanted to have a state actually in Africa. I don't know if you're familiar with that. That they
That's
were
right.
looking
That's
at
correct.
Uganda
Yeah.
or
That was
Wakanda,
rejected.
as it's
It
called,
was
Uganda,
rejected. Yeah.
Wakanda, according to pronunciation. They wanted a state over there in Africa because they had gotten to recognize that the truth, if there's any truth of the biblical narrative, is connected with Black people. This is the thing that
What it
they
was is that they wanted the state there, but it was rejected by the consensus, and that's why it went to the site that it's currently at.
Okay, no. So somebody said Ras is something. I saw something came up, but yeah. So one part of Zion in the biblical sense refers to the monarchy of David. To keep it simple, one aspect of it. But David did something else also in the biblical narrative. He took the Ark of the Covenant, which is the key symbol of the religious or the spiritual idea of the Old Testament Israelites. He took that to the same place known as Zion. So in simple terms, he had the Zion represented the church and the state. It represented the monarchy or the political aspect and the religious aspect. So coming into the biblical narrative in the New Testament even is based on the Old Testament. True Zion represents for Israelites or people who think this way, it represents our own monarchy, our own form of government, and our own form of spirituality that was centered in the events recorded in the Old Testament. But other
Okay.
people, European Jews, have taken these concepts and used these concepts for something that is similarly named, almost like the Jebus. The difference between those and these with a similarity of name. So this is where the confusion comes in, you know. So we like to say the African Zion because in the Ethiopian context, the Ark and Mary, the relation of the Virgin Mary is all related to this Zion concept in the modern Orthodox sense. You know what I mean? So that's the spiritual aspect of Zion in one form, but that always is companion with the monarchy of David. You know what I mean? After the rebellion against Haile Selassie, it disturbed the monarchy aspect, and it also has affected the church aspect. This is why Ethiopia today, you see a bunch of Romanist iconography, whitewash icons. I got to say something on that because Ethiopia was the place when I was coming forward in the 90s and before, when Black people over here wanted to feel pride in a religious association with the Bible. We looked to Ethiopia because they had icons back then before 1974, 75, that resembled Black people. But today we see there's like a heavy whitewashing of the icons. And we attribute this to the church and state. In other words, if you cut off the head of the church, of the state, you affect your religion, you affect your belief. You know what I mean? You cannot change, if you change your leaders, then you also change your belief system too, because we install our leaders based on our beliefs. So if we had a problem for a good man, a righteous man, and we say he was a thief, you understand? Our religion becomes corrupted too. So this is just leading to the Zion in the Ethiopian relationship, and where we're at today. But I hope I wasn't too complex on that. And once again, I apologize to my brother if I misconstrued anything that he had said, on that. But I hope that answers it a little bit. That there's a real Zion. There's
Okay.
even a book
Now
by Edward Blundell.
let's go
Mhm.
over to those that are.
To it.
Yes.
What
So
from?
I mean, you did answer much of that. I mean, you answered Jim's question most of it, but basically,
Yeah.
what the point I was trying to make out is that you see, it's okay. It's okay that I mean I understand. I get it. Right. The advantage that you get from this last. But what I'm saying it isn't. It's not what African people need. First of all, that's one thing. It's not what African people need because we I mean African people they've already got what they need. I mean what we need. Like we've got I mean agriculture, arts and whatnot, mine I mean fishing, stuff like that. That's what we need to concentrate on. Not on a fantasy narrative that is got that will do nothing for us. What we need to concentrate on is tangible stuff that will better us, that will enhance our lives, that will make us better. Like for instance, agriculture. I mean, mining, fishing. I mean, medical sciences, metallurgy. These are the things that we need to be concentrated on. Shipbuilding. These are the things that we need to. I mean, upskill on. Not. I mean, not on narratives on foreign extremist narratives.
I would like to speak. If anyone can hear me, yeah, yeah.
Very clear.
Jim.
Mhm.
Um, I would disagree. What we need is an exemplary character that every African can try their very best in human efforts, and thus to emulate and approximate their 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 lives as much as possible to the good example of this quote unquote exemplary character. The information knowledge is available. We need individuals that are willing to maintain values and be morally sane, be good individuals. And thus we remove that from the way, and everything else shall come. Now his imperial majesty is in this time that exemplary character. You see, because if Africans are ruling Africa, then why is there no movement forward? Because of the corruption. Because ones that have been consumed in corruption are corrupt, and it doesn't matter. They will rule for themselves. So we need to see the example that one can rule at the highest level of human government appropriately for the
So you
people.
say one second.
Only
You say you disagree that we don't need to upskill.
no. I'm saying that those things can easily come about when when individuals in positions of government are willing to make the right decisions for the people,
No,
for the people.
how can they come about when you're peddling a false narrative, a fantasy, something
No, no,
that
no. Okay, let me make that
false hope that
true.
doesn't that won't lead to anything.
Brother
I'm saying
Alonzo,
that we should upskill, get skills that to improve our lives. You're telling me that no, that we should be peddling false narratives to
This
the
is
populace.
Haile
Brother
What?
Selassie
Alonzo,
is
Brother
not a
Alonzo, may I? Brother Alonzo, may I?
yes.
It's interesting just in hearing. I thank the brother for what he's saying because he's right. We do need progress, advancement, improvement in the lives of the people. And what His Imperial Majesty and others, it wasn't just him alone, but and others showed and proved within his life testimony, was that this can be done. And this was done. And I'm using Ethiopia, of course, as an example, by extension, the early stages of decolonization as an example. These things were able to be affected because of ones like Haile Selassie and others that believed in a narrative that enabled them to maintain their freedom, enable them to build up a country that just came out of, you could say, isolation and came out of a very primitive time and within a period of 40 to 60 years, right, became very, how can you say, students, education. Ethiopians do a lot of their own technology for themselves, and also with the OAU in the initial stages and being promoted by Haile Selassie, who had the army strong, agriculture. There was a lot of improvements that was going on in Ethiopia, unlike any other place. And when you say a false narrative, well, maybe it's a false narrative for you, but definitely it was not a false narrative in the fruit of that one who claimed descendant from who you call a fictional character. The fruit is there, not just for Ethiopia, but also for Africa. So I get you on the false narrative point, because maybe it's not a narrative that,
Well,
maybe it's not a narrative that you
how is it for Africa when you don't even believe that you're African? Are you African?
Excuse me?
Are you African? Are you African?
Am I African?
Are you African? Yeah.
Of course I'm of African descent. Yes.
No, I didn't. That's not what I asked you. I said, are you African? No, that's not what I asked you. This is not what I asked you. It's a simple question. Are you African? Yes or no?
Africa is yes.
Are you African?
I am of African descent. Africa is a name.
I'm not asking you, are you of African descent? It's a simple question. It's not a trick question. If you ask anyone in that straight away, it's a yes or no answer.
No, but what that not answer for you? What that not answer?
No, that's not. That's an unacceptable answer.
Let me
Are
jump
you
in real quick.
Listen,
Wait.
Are you African?
Hey, both of you guys, slow down a second. Slow down
Right,
a second.
exactly.
Slow down.
Exactly.
Slow
You
down
can't
a
admit that
second.
you're African, yet you're telling us that it's good. What you're telling us is going to be good for Africa. How?
Like myself. I don't know why, but you asked me
what is the answer to are you an African? Yes or no?
He doesn't have an answer to that. He's not an African. He doesn't believe he's an African. He doesn't think like an African. He doesn't sleep like an African. He doesn't wake up like an African. So he's not an African. He doesn't believe himself that he's an African. So you know what he said? He said that he's a descendant from. You're asking somebody, I'm a descendant. What?
Yeah, I am a descendant.
But you're not African. So how can you? So you can't tell us. You can't.
So I'm not.
You can't tell us something that's going to favor Africa when you yourself are an African.
You say I'm not African. Oh, what gives you the?
You don't believe you're African.
Who I am.
You believe that you're descendant from a lost tribe. Yes or no?
There's tribes in Africa, aren't there?
No, that's not what from the biblical context.
No.
You believe that you're descendant from a lost tribe from the Bible. Yes or no?
Aren't you a member of a tribe? Are you a member of a tribe? Do you have an African tribe?
That's not what I'm asking you.
No.
That's not the question.
No. It's what I'm asking.
That is not the question. If you are not an African, then since you're not an African, you can't. You cannot give us.
What is your tribe?
You cannot give us a solution.
Are you African?
Of course I'm African. 100%
What tribe
African.
are you from?
That's not the question.
No. What tribe are you from? Do you have a tribe?
I'm not from a tribe. I'm not from a tribe.
You don't have a tribe.
I'm from an ethnicity.
You have no tribe.
Africans have ethnicities. They don't have tribes.
Africa don't have tribes?
No.
Africa don't have tribes.
No, they don't. They have ethnicities.
Oh wow. Okay, so I need to read your books or something like that, because it seems as though Africans do have tribes.
No, they don't.
Aren't they also very tribal too?
They
If you have
ethnicity.
tribes, they're very tribal, right?
No,
No, Africans don't have tribes.
He's in denial.
It's a misconception. There are ethnicities. They're ethnic groups. That's what we have. We have ethnic groups. We don't have tribes.
Different
Yeah,
ethnic
I mean,
groups.
he's right in a sense, because there is Muslims in Africa.
Well, that's
Muslim. That's a religion, man.
I know,
That's
but
more-
isn't there certain tribes within the religions in Africa?
Yes, they are. They are.
Yes, right. So there is
Yes,
some
but
form of tribalism.
that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the.
I understand that, but what I'm trying to say
yeah.
is you can legitimately say there is tribes now in Africa, like the brother was saying. You're not from a tribe.
But what we're talking about, then that in that context, no, there isn't. There are tribes.
So you leave religion out of it, right?
There are tribes that
but
work, the tribes that religions, yeah, obviously. But what I'm talking
yeah,
about is
but if
the
the brother believes in the Bible and he
ethnology.
believes that he's a descendant of a tribe from there, you deny that.
Exactly.
Okay.
But that is not an African. What's that got to do with Africa?
That's the problem for
Okay.
Africa. That's the
Exactly.
problem for Africa.
So
It's intolerance of
and
other
yet
Africans.
he's telling us
It's
that
intolerance of other
what he's teaching
Africans.
is going
That's
to
our
favor
problem
Africa.
as a
You don't
people.
believe you're African,
You
so how can you
exemplify
teach us
that.
anything that's going to favor us?
Huh? You say I don't believe I'm African.
Exactly.
You don't believe I'm African.
I didn't say I don't
That's
believe
your
you're African.
belief.
I said you don't believe you're African.
No, you don't believe that I believe I'm African. Because you tell me your
No.
opinion. You tell me your opinion.
You,
Your opinion is that I don't believe I'm African, but really it's that you don't believe that I believe I'm African.
I think he's
really?
saying because you believe in the Bible and you use the
Oh,
Bible
word.
as,
For real?
No,
Because
that's not that.
because the
No, that's
language of
not.
the Bible is an African Semitic language. What is wrong
No, it
with you,
isn't.
man?
No, it
What
isn't.
is
No, it
wrong
isn't.
with you? What is wrong with you?
No, it
The
is
whole
not.
language of the Bible is labeled as an Afro-Semitic language with Afro for African in the front, and you are dismissive of that?
No, it isn't. No, it isn't.
Oh,
What?
it
Look, the
is
thing is that,
in your
like I
book?
just said earlier, you're trying to sell us a solution that's supposed to benefit Africa. Yes or no?
I didn't understand the question.
that's
Come again?
I don't get that question either.
No,
You
come
can't
again with the
say
question.
sell a
I
No,
didn't hear the
solution.
question.
because this is what the solution that you're peddling, your philosophy that your solution
Well,
that you're
peddling.
peddling, that you just said just a minute
Well,
ago,
peddling.
is supposed to help Africa. That's what you
In
said.
what
You said
way?
that this is.
No,
And quote
Africans,
him
we
then.
have to help ourselves. I'm
Pardon?
just articulating what the brother wanted me to articulate.
I
You
know, but
understand?
within
Who
that,
I, as
within that, the message
Rastafari,
that you were saying,
we identify
you
ourselves
were
as.
actually
I never said that
following it
like I'm here to unite
into a
all the
narrative that is
Africans,
going to
but I'm
benefit
here to
Africa.
point to
But
those.
my problem with it, it's my problem with that is that the fact that you're not African. You don't accept yourself as an African. So under no circumstances have you do you possess anything that will benefit Africa?
He wasn't an African.
Nothing.
African descent.
What?
Please get it correct. He never said he wasn't an African. You said that. Let's get it correct.
No, what I'm saying that he doesn't believe he's an African.
Sir, we
This
are
That's what I
brother,
said.
why
He
were you
we
believes
have
he's a descendant
we
of
have
a
met the
tribe of
Okay,
problem.
Africa,
then ask
though.
him a
That's
question.
the
Ask him a
problem.
question. He didn't even
That's
he
the
couldn't answer
racism.
it. I said,
That's the
are you an
racism.
African? He said, I'm a
That's it
descendant of
right
African.
there.
It's a simple.
That's the
If you're an
racism.
African, yes, I'm an African. I'm proud to be African.
African descendants? We are African. Our origin is of Africa. So I'm just
I
going
Right,
mean, I mean, we even labeled African Americans because of our African link to Africa. How do we get
right.
over here? Let's touch on that. Let's touch on that.
Yeah,
Because I think there's some guiltiness resting in your closet, bro. There's some guiltiness resting in your closet. You want to then
no,
say
there
to us
isn't.
people who have
No,
been
there isn't.
displaced
Okay, how
from
did we get?
Africa
Okay, so you need to
that now we're not African.
learn history. That's what
Are
you
No,
you
need to
an
do.
sometimes we
atheist?
encounter people like you. We encounter folks like you. And you're part of the problem.
So
You might see us as
one
the
thing,
problem. We see
Rabbi.
you as the problem,
Let me
bro.
get this straight. Let me just get this straight.
You
Africans
already got it mixed up, but hopefully get it
Africans
straight now.
did
Get it
not
straight. Hmm?
sell you into slavery.
Hmm?
So I want you to get that straight, right?
Hmm.
We did not sell you into slavery, right? Okay. Now that's
What did he
clear.
say? Can somebody interpret, please? What did he
You
say?
heard what I said.
Didn't come through clearly.
I
You
think
heard clearly what I said.
say
I
that again.
said Africans did the notion that Africans sold other Africans into slavery is the greatest lie in human history.
So how
Okay,
we get
No,
here?
I
How we
heard
get
that.
here?
you
How we
I
get here?
not know the
How we get here?
story,
Are
sir.
you saying that we are ethnic to this land and therefore we don't have no African
No,
relationship, or
that's not
just
what I
me
said.
personally?
What
It's me personally.
all history, what happened in history happened, but
No.
it's not
What
that
happened in history?
we're
Let's
not
talk
the ones
about
that
it.
are
What
fault.
happened in
It's not the
history?
Africans that are at fault. So that's you know that, but yet
Oh, the
I mean,
Africans.
most of you will continue peddling false narratives, saying that African soldiers in slavery,
Oh, you
it's
talking about some
ridiculous,
Hebrew Israelites? You
a
talking about some
ridiculous
other group,
narrative.
right? You talking about some other groups? You're not talking about me. You're talking about some other groups.
No, and I'm not talking about you. No, but you just said that I've got some answering. You said it. You said I've got something to answer, and that's why I said that. Okay, let me just put it straight, so we don't need to go round. I mean, dribbling around the bushes.
No, but you want to
Straight to
say
the
that
point.
I'm
Africans did
originally
not sell
African.
ourselves. It's just like
You
let
are
me put this.
very
Let
offensive.
me
You
take
are
this picture for
very
you.
offensive. You are very offensive. Those kind of statements start wars probably on the continent too. That's what probably starts
How?
wars.
How?
People speaking
How?
like
So
you're
so okay.
speaking
What do
and
you
saying
believe?
to
What?
another
So you
group of
believe that
people
you believe?
that
That's what I'm saying.
you're not part of this. You're saying to another
I'm not
group of
part of
people that
what?
you're not part of this. And
Part
you
of
want to
what?
say to other people what their identity should be. I'm not telling you who you are or dictating your identity to you.
No, but I'm just saying. I'm just saying the facts. I'm saying the fact. I'm telling you the
You're
facts, and
stating
that's
your
the
facts,
facts.
your biased
You
facts.
cannot sell. You cannot sell us.
Tell you what,
Africans do not need
I didn't show you anything.
to be hearing to be sold narratives from people that don't believe themselves that they're African. If you don't believe you're African, you cannot do us any benefit. You cannot. There's no benefit that you can have for us.
All
Everything that
right.
you'll be giving us will be poison.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay,
I can see that
well,
point.
Jim, let me just ask you a question. And first of all, Yaden, Ras Yahdon, I want to thank you. Alonso and I want to thank you. For ones out there, Ras Yahdon has been our teacher for over a decade. And when we were searching in our own individual way, we were able to find Ras Yahdon, and he answered a lot of the questions. And the Holy Spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh, guided us to this. So I want to thank you, Ras Yahdon, for coming through and teaching us and also sharing. Now, Jim, I want to ask you, do you remember Brother Setros had the story about the Badagry story where his family was from? And there's a video in the Setros log where he goes, Deo Setros goes to Badagry and does a public apology for his own family's um, of complicity in selling slaves. And also the first round and the second round, he went and showed us where the second tour
Yeah,
where
I
they
saw
had to
that
bring
video.
him
Yeah, I
back.
Yeah,
saw the
okay, yeah, yeah.
video.
What? Give us the dates. What date was that? What's the dates?
Well, it's in a video, so we don't need to
Yeah, yeah.
explain the
What's the
dates.
dates? Yeah, yeah, can we have dates,
It's it.
please?
Deos. This
What's
is
the dates?
Link,
Dates.
and
Okay,
he
well, we're not
Dates.
prepared to give
he
you
is
those dates
being
right now because they're
very
not on my
open.
top of my head.
Can you find the dates and give us the dates? And I want to. So are you trying to tell us
Absolutely.
that? Are you trying to?
Sir.
I can. Okay. Okay. Let's put it this way. Let me put it this way. I'll bet anyone $5,000. Let's have a debate for $5,000 that I can prove to you that Africans were not responsible for slavery.
They didn't
Five
sell
thousand dollars.
slaves.
Africans
That's
responsible
not what I said.
Frederick.
Africans were not
Africans
responsible
not,
for the
they were
transatlantic
victims
slavery.
of slavery. They were
Five
victims
thousand dollars.
of
Anybody?
the first
5,000. I'll bet anybody five thousand
sex
dollars.
trafficking, human trafficking. Yes,
Look,
Africans were the
it's not a
victims
question.
of
If anyone wants to bet, I'll wager $5,000 on it. I'm not even going to debate
that.
anyone from now on going forward. If anyone wants to debate me, $5,000. I bet that Africans were not responsible for the transatlantic slavery.
No
Okay,
one
no,
said
no,
that.
hold on, hold on. Hold on.
That's what you're implying.
Oh,
That's what you're
Mister,
implying.
Mister.
That's what you're saying. That's what you're implying.
Hey,
For
Mister.
instance, if we were, let me put this straight now. If we were having a conversation, nobody knew what we were talking about. Yeah, and people just jumped into our life. What you were saying right there, they'll be thinking that, right. So it was Africans that started it.
No, sir, you
That's
are
exactly so. Anytime that you keep peddling
He's moving the
those
goalposts
malicious,
around. He's
No,
malicious
moving the
narratives,
goalposts all around.
Mister.
that's what
He's
exactly
moving the
what it's
goalposts
that's
around
what it symbolizes. That's what it
to
signals.
score a
It signals that
rhetorical point.
so it was the Africans that were at fault.
Well,
No, no,
So
no, no,
how does
no,
it
no.
make any
Nobody said
sense?
the
How
Africans
can Africans
were started.
how can we enslave ourselves? Doesn't even make any sense. Something that doesn't make sense. And
So
yet these
tell
are
me
the things that you
something.
peddle. You peddle on the internet. You peddle on
Tell me
the internet
something. Tell me something.
on a
Tell me something. Even
daily
with the recent
basis.
political situation going on, we read reports where Africans say that there's some African leaders who are in cahoots with outside foreign interests and who are exploiting and cooperating with foreign interests. Africans
no, that's what
say
I'm.
other Africans are doing this to themselves. There's good people and there's bad people. I think this
That's not
blanket
the point.
idea
We know that.
that
That's not the
that
point.
nobody
You
was
know what I'm talking
involved in
about.
any
Don't
improprietary when there's
you're trying to
improprietary.
ask me.
Hey,
That's not the point.
no,
We
you
know
want to
that
say
there
we
are
have
good
to get
people,
rid
there are
of a
bad people.
certain
The
leader
point I'm
because the
making
leader
straight.
is
The point
embedded
I'm
in the
making is that
West.
Africa.
What are you talking about? Are you talking about
Stop
the same
making it
people
seem as though
Yeah,
we're
let
the
him
ones
finish. I want to get.
that
Yeah, let him.
we're
Go
to blame
ahead. Go
for
ahead.
our own predicament.
Yeah,
No, no, no,
you're
no, 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 no,
saying.
no,
You're
no.
saying.
It's not an absolute statement I'm making. I'm saying that there are good people and bad people. My own brother might do me something wrong.
Yeah, but he's
I
not
still love
making
my
that
Yes,
brother,
point.
that's
but he's
true.
my
But,
brother.
what you're
He's
saying,
not making
what I'm trying
that
to say is
point.
that anytime you say that, that's what it implies. Anytime you say that, yes, yes, there were later in the latter stages of the transatlantic slavery, there were people that were dabbling in slavery, Africans that were dabbling in slavery. Yes, that did happen, but that's not what caused it. That's out of context.
What caused
Saying
it?
that,
But that's
peddling
not
that,
what we're
What
talking
caused
you're
it?
about. We
taking
just use
stuff
that
out
as
of
the
context.
But what
If you
caused
want to
it?
say that, you say that okay, it happened in the latter stages of slavery. That happened before, but this when the slavery was fading out. This is what happened. Not that when you just say that, that means that basically anybody reading it would have said, okay, so it was Africans that caused it on themselves.
No,
No,
I
I
don't
think you're
think you're
taking
saying
one
that.
statement. I think you're taking one statement and then you're taking it to the extreme. You're
No,
taking
I'm
one
not. No, I'm
statement and
not.
you're saying,
I'm
well, if
just
you say
saying. I'm
this,
saying it,
then that's
bro.
the meaning
I'm just
part of
waking
this.
you up to the fact. So a matter of fact. That's all I'm
Okay, but
doing.
tell me, I want to learn from you. You tell me what caused the slavery out of Africa.
What
I
caused
would
the
say
slavery out of Africa?
Yeah,
Warmongers
there
caused
was
it.
boats
Warmongers.
involved, right? There was
warmongers,
Eurocentric,
that's a good
and
point.
or the olden day Eurocentric and Arabian warmongers. That's what caused it.
Arabian
Go read your
warmongers
history.
and what?
Read your history.
Okay,
You
but
heard what I said.
what I'm trying to hear from you is that you're saying that there's people that had a business of slavery, and these people owned property such as boats, and you're saying those are Arabian people that did this. Now, when you mean Arabian, do you mean Semitic or non-Semitic?
I said Arabian and Eurocentric
And
warmongers.
No, I
Eurocentric.
agree. I agree with you
Yeah.
Okay,
on that. It was
okay,
The Arabs first, the Mohammedans and the Arabs, they were
So
first.
then
okay,
And
you
the
know that.
Europeans came in
How come
under
okay.
is
Well,
how
I'm
the
come
learning.
it is
Thank
that?
you.
How come it is that? Okay, put it this way. How come is that anytime you're talking about slavery, yeah,
Mhm.
most of the major narrative that always comes out of your mouth is what you just said. The Africans sold themselves into slavery,
Oh, I see what you're
which is
saying.
a lie. To start off with, which is a lie because it's out of context. It did happen, but it happened in the latter stages, and it was not the cause.
Well, that's.
Were coons and
I think you got
sellouts.
a whole different point. That wasn't a point. It was a point when you
I know,
started to
but
pontificate.
I'm okay, right. I'm making you aware of what of a major point. I'm saying that when if I'm just saying that as a black man, whenever you're talking about slavery, that should not be what you're talking about. Simple as that. That's all I'm saying. You
If I
people
encounter,
are going
if I
you're
encounter
going
Africans that
to
saying,
teach
if
us
I encounter Africans
to
that
teach
said,
us about the reality of about the lessons that we need to learn, or don't talk about it at all. You're going to talk about slavery, yet you're going to say that Africans sold each other. Come on, man.
no. I think you're using that as a kind of straw point now because you said a lot of other things
I
that
am
weren't real
because
happening. You're
it
using
is a
that as a
strong
straw
point.
point,
Because
but
what I'm saying
that's
is that you know
moving the
when we because
goalposts
you said
around.
that I've got something to answer
Sir,
for.
see your game
And
because
that really
you're not
hurt.
letting
That really
anybody
hurt me
speak.
because
Okay, can we
it's a point that
take
I
turns?
thought most
We
people would
need
already know already.
overshadow this conversation. Can we take turns?
Yes.
Because we hear
Can
you.
we return? Can we
Let us
return to
take
the
turns,
normal
okay,
conversation?
sir? Because you're overshadowing us.
Yeah, sorry. I apologize if I'm overshadowing anyone.
Thank you, sir. Can my husband will just say something, but we can talk, we can dialogue. But it's just really interruptive when we're speaking over each other. Your points are valid. And that's we're agreeing with you. I never said that Africa was responsible, just for clarity. And I agree with you. There were European and Saudi Arabian or Middle Eastern interests along with other ones. Yes, I agree with you. Now my husband's gonna say something in Ras Yahdon. We love this conversation. We just want to have a dialogue with you.
But the point is, none of this has anything to do with the topic of the show, which is
No, it
unfortunate.
definitely doesn't. Mhm.
It's unfortunate, although it's related, but
Yeah, we
and
got swerved. We got
but
swerved. We
this
got
is
run off
not.
the road.
These are not even answering the questions that we were supposed to be speaking about. So I mean, if we could move forward to some of that.
Yeah, here's another question. I mean, another point that I was trying to make out earlier. Like obviously I've laid my understanding to you from the start. Again, I rock with Rastafari. Um, I would I, I mean I would die for a brother, Rastafari. That's how strong I feel about, because in the West here, in the diaspora, the Rastafari movement is something else. I'll just leave it at that. Now, however, the philosophy the right thing for Africa? No, that's where I don't agree with. And that's my view.
The true, it's not for everyone. Everyone's different, but we can still cooperate and coexist and better our relative progresses. Yeah, you don't have to believe everything that some of us have been. It wouldn't. We wouldn't be special if everyone understood the things how they reveal themselves and how they have fulfilled and manifested. If everybody experienced a share in receiving that, spiritual insight to things. So, you know, we that are more that have been called for a particular to represent his majesty in a particular way cannot separate the man from his faith, and neither are we separable from him, and we are as one. Therefore the truth, which you call philosophy, is just as much a part of our reality as um as reality itself, even more so, so. But I'll say this. You mentioned about, okay, you're okay with the whole, like, a black Jesus Christ and, Lion of Judah type scenario. So let me put this out then. World War II, it began in Ethiopia. What was it? The Vatican Church, Victor Emmanuel, which was the royal house of Italy, and the fascist dictator Mussolini. They came in unison. They became one power, and they represent what we could say a white European, like like slavery, colonization. They could represent all that, right? Like that the Christian white Christian belief and that allowed
But
slavery.
wasn't Mussolini a fascist?
No, yeah,
Yes, yes, he
but
was a
in
fascist.
order to have the strength to continue on his desire to rebirth the old glory of the Roman Empire in this modern time, he needed the royal house, which was led by Victor Emmanuel II, I believe. And then he needed also the church support, which was the Vatican, and they needed to come together so that they can all participate and utilize their respective influences to go on this mission, like to take Ethiopia. So it was all three of them working together. So now they invade Ethiopia. The world, abandons, or they toss Jonah out of the boat, in hopes of appeasement. They appease in hopes of, establishing a world peace, so called. In other words, they sacrifice Ethiopia along with his majesty to Mussolini. They do not, keep covenant as was expected of them from the League of Nations, Um, and okay, what's the outcome of all that? The outcome is that the God, Haile Selassie first, is God, which is a Christian Judeo God, um, came to his salvation and liberated Ethiopia, and thus we have the victory of a true representation of a Christ that is for the black peoples, and we have the defeated party, which is the old European white Christ that never
Antichrist.
came, yeah, that never came to their assistance. So we have the victory of Ethiopia, representative of like that God is willing to stand for and defend and fight for all the black peoples of the world. Would you is that not, like, do you understand what I'm saying? How could we separate that from, now going back to the question of is Haile Selassie first Jesus Christ? Of course he's not. But Jesus Christ, the Word, did not fulfill everything that was expected of him in regards to Old Testament like literature.
Yeah,
There's
but can you speak to a blood lineage to Selassie?
uh
Is there a blood lineage that actually, is there anybody here that knows that if there is an actual true blood lineage to Jesus Christ to Selassie? Does
No,
anybody know this?
that was never the claim. You know,
Well,
the
blood
Yeah.
lineage, may I say, a
Okay.
blood lineage to David. Let's put it like that.
yeah, that
In
was
fact, what I was,
Okay. At this point, I will say we are welcome back. Please let's maintain decorum. Let the person speaking talk through before
mm,
we ask questions, so that you don't cut the
Disturbs.
flow, and we that are the receiving end, we get to learn. It's called
mm,
learning. We want to learn. So
mm,
let questions come sequentially, one after the other. No thanks to Africa that has been defrauded by the Western idiots that has put us in this condition. That's why we were cut off for some minutes, because we're having puppets ruling this country and the rest of
This
the
continent.
African continent. So we want to believe that from what we learn here, we can transform the lives of our African youth, so that they are thinking like people like these, His Royal Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie, so that they can be thinking less of themselves. We can have less selfish human being on this planet, so that
mm.
intelligent people like us and some other youths can really change their world. So thank you. Please, Alonso, you have the floor.
It's not
Mm.
Alonso. It was Rabbi that was.
Was it Rabbi that was speaking?
Yes.
No, it's Alonso.
It was Alonso.
Would you like to speak? Say something, Wyndham? Or
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in on what you said. I think you made a very good point, going back to the previous war, World War II, or what led up to World War II. The paradigm, both peoples, the Romans, the Europeans, talked about Christ and Jesus and went around the world making people Christians. We have Ethiopians who have an ancient claim to Judaism or Judeo-Christianity, right? And yet we see two different manifestations of this belief system. One that basically is antichrist, the Romans, the fascists, based on them coming in Jesus' name, but killing, murdering, enslaving people. And then we have Ethiopia, represented by His Majesty, basically working out the better aspects of the biblical Christian narrative. That is significant right there. That right there is a testimony to, like, two people say they're Christians and one person is robbing and stealing from you, and another person is giving what they have and going through the sacrifice for others. Which one would at least be true to what they tell us is Christian? I say it's Ethiopia, representing Africa. And that was a victory not just for Ethiopia, but for Black people, for Africans. You know what I mean? Even though it was based on Ethiopia's fight on the front line, it was something that if Ethiopia could be taken out of the picture, then the whole continent in total could be taken over by foreigners, by Europeans, by Arabs, by their religions or whatever, their form of religion, so forth and so on. So that's the point that I, was making. Let me see this point right here. Brother Amujale is right in the sense there were groups, they raided African countries. I agree. They had the advantage of the gun. I also agree, the Gatler gun in South Africa. Check out the monster, King
Exactly.
Leopold
Exactly.
of Belgium and his legacy in the Congo. Definitely agree, but
Exactly.
it was Ethiopia that was the last kind of stand.
Bastion. Yeah, that's right.
Bastion, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it wasn't just for, even though many Africans may look at Ethiopia just to be Ethiopia, and they have their own countries, ethnicities, peoples, and struggles, but you have to look at the big picture of it. What were they after? They wasn't just after just Ethiopia. They was after silencing this tradition that tells a different story, both of the Bible, both of King Solomon, King David, all of this biblical Zion, everything, a whole different narrative. They was trying to shut Africa out of the future. And what Ethiopia did provided other Africans and Black people, even around the world in the West. We over here in America saw this personally, that many of our ancestors wanted to go over there and fight. So when Black people were allowed, so-called in America, to fight in World War II, many of our ancestors, Black American, African American ancestors, wanted to kill some white people. Excuse me if that sounds offensive, but because the way everything with white supremacy was running was not like today, where they're on
Yeah.
PC mode.
I can't help but think about Buffalo Soldier from Bob.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
even though the Buffalo
Yeah.
Soldier is
Buffalo
a
Soldier.
kind
Yeah.
of a complicated history. If you know like one thing about that I agree with brother Amujale, right? Is that we have to get into the details behind it. Behind it. Some things, were good at stimulating, like with the reggae music and the Rastafari movement, with the
That's right.
Africa must be free. With Africans doing for themselves, with Africans breaking the chains of colonialism and neo-colonialism. That right there has been lost
Yes,
today.
sir.
We
Yes,
don't
sir.
have that same clear message. You know what I mean? It's like even many of us as Rastafarian musicians have gotten caught up more in trying to get a what they call a Grammy or something. You know what I'm saying? Instead of doing a song or music that can be used on the ground to inspire people generally, and Black people, African people in particular, around the world, to do for self, to love oneself, and to do better for themselves. This sadly is lost right now in Rastafari. Or
Okay.
in Rastafari, there's not enough as it was before. You know what I mean?
Teach.
Putting out a
Okay.
message to unify. Not
Okay.
giving people the philosophy, not saying you got to be a Rasta, you got to hail Haile Selassie as we as Rastafari do, but it was a message to inspire them to do what they believe is right and what they can do to free themselves and to love themselves and to progress themselves and to liberate
Teach.
themselves. Liberation
Teach.
music is what's
Okay.
lacking.
Uh, I want to come in here. This is where we now enter into the part two, linking this Rastafari belief system, especially that exemplary life of His Royal Majesty Haile Selassie's lifestyle, conduct, ways of thinking, mannerism, care for others, even when it hurts himself. That is what we call the absence of selfishness. Now, let's look at what is happening now in the continent of Africa. I don't want to believe that anybody on this platform doesn't understand that the Western world are trying to stage world war right here on the African soil. This is a gimmick of what they are planning based on their action. And African leaders are not paying attention. We are not reading in between the line. Just like I saw somebody was commenting here that Ghana was apologizing for selling their fellow human beings and the likes. Thank God and thank Ghana for apologizing. But please, we do not want to wait another century to apologize to another set of human lives that could have been saved but deliberately wasted on the piecemeal of business transactions between countries in Africa and the rest of the world. Now, we have a situation here. Niger is currently under threat of being invaded by the Western world. And I don't want to just label it the Western world, especially France, the country that is called the Ajeronjegun of Africa. The meaning of Ajeronjegun means what? What's that animal? We call Ajeronjegun.
Hyena. Hyena.
Hyena. France is the hyena of the continent of Africa. Wherever they get to, they eat, they crunch the bone and render the countries useless to themselves.
Yes.
They make sure that what's it called? The CBN of that country. Go and look at all the francophone countries. The CBN of that country is in their own country. Who does that? Now we are sitting down and watching this hyena tactically arranging my own country to go and to go to war with our own neighbor, our own brother. And Mali and Burkina Faso are saying that they are going to be behind Niger. Just look at, don't let us even think too much. Spell Niger and Nigeria. Niger,
Exactly.
Nigeria. It is
The
too
same.
close by spelling. It is too close by border. The borderline is just a stroll. You can stroll into each places, and we have about 7 border points, trackable border points with Nigeria. Now, America, that is very, very the best country in the world when it comes to international relations. They are so kind, and that's why they have to introduce, they love Africa so much. That's why they have to militarize all our borders in the name of having what? And yet they say we are independent.
Hmm.
So now the question is, when are we going to start sensitizing the people that are supposed to be leaders, the people that are the youth that are coming up, the adults that are already giving up, that do not know how to advise their constituency?
It's a
Thank God.
system.
Now,
Right.
thank God
And I
that
think, in my opinion, Rastafari could help the youth immensely.
de-
It's a
definitely,
system.
definitely, those are the kind of systems that should be in place, strategic systems that should be in place, sensitizing, because whether we like it or not, religion is a tool that shapes the mind of the people towards a better path of thinking. When you have something you believe in, then ultimately you will have something that cautions you. And what's it called? Presently, Africa is on the verge of war. The what's it? Russia and Ukraine. We saw what happened there. They want to bring that. It was a mistake on their part. They do not want the world war to happen in the European hemisphere. They want it on the ground of Africa, and we are playing dumb to it. And that is why I'm employing everyone that comes in contact with this video, with this live stream, to please try your best possible. Share the video or talk sense to people, Africans around you, especially those that are around Niger, Nigeria, Mali, Burkina Faso, because we do not need this useless war. The only people that will profit from this useless war are the takers, the hungry undertakers. Take away Africa from the hand of France, what you have is rance. So with that being said, Amujale, I want you to go first. What will be your advice to those 2 countries, to the 3 countries that have been under threat now of possible invasion? Because I tell you, once they are able to invade Niger, the next thing is that they are going to try to go to Mali and Burkina Faso. Thank God that those chaps are thinking ahead of the box, and that's why they are like, we are not going to close our eyes and allow you to penetrate through Niger and get to us. And what would be your advice to Nigeria? Because Niger, to me, Niger has nothing to lose.
Nigeria should stay out of it. That's my advice to Nigeria. Nigeria should stay out of it. They should defend their borders. They should spice up their borders and stand at alert. That's what they should do. They shouldn't get involved in all the shenanigans that's going on there.
I think you just gave a very welcoming answer to this. Now I move over to, I wouldn't know if Alonso is quite aware of what is presently going on, but while I wait to move to Alonso, I want Jim to talk to this, because Jim owes an African title in Nigeria. Nwobodo. Now, Chukwudi, what would be
Gang,
your
gang.
gang? what would be your advice? Now, I want you to add your advice to be in 2 ways. What would be your advice to America? Because on the ground, America is stylishly pushing Nigeria into this. They are stylishly pushing Nigeria into this, and they have nothing to lose. But I can tell you that some of the kidnappings that have been going on in Nigeria. Okay, my wife is cautioning me not to say that, but let me just state this clearly. Nigeria has a lot to lose if it goes into fighting with Niger, because Nigerians are our brothers.
Exactly.
So if France is losing its territory, it's not we Africans that they will still use to go and coerce other African countries as slaves to the
Exactly.
jokers that are calling themselves France.
Hmm.
So what will be your take to
It,
that?
yeah, and my immediate reflexive response was just to go look at Macron himself and what excuse me, France has been going through. By the way, they have the yellow jackets. They have, you're looking at a basic central bank that was set up by, well, you know who the Rothschilds are, and we know the central banking system. But France is one of the big ones, right? And it always had those potentials of like controlling nearest economies. You know what I'm trying to say? So they always had that a power, but when it was sliced up and diced, because this is where I lose train of thought because of World War II. I'm not an expert at that stuff. Like, I don't understand about how that Congo thing went down. I don't understand any of that yet. Not, but I do know that the France issue is reflexive of its own country's status right now. And I think they're in their desperate throes. And that yeah, you know what? Standing up for you and protecting a border, I've always said that, I'm not like somebody who wants to like keep people from coming in, but when there's a war, that's what you do. So that's my
Okay.
thoughts.
Okay, thank you so very much. Let's look at this comment before we move over to Rabbi. Rabbi and Alonso, please. We are coming for you, and Nubin me also.
Yes, Nubia, me, and Alonso together. So I will
Uh,
definitely have a lot to say. And the
uh,
rabbi, the last statement for real.
okay, now let's look at what Desmond Emmanuel is saying. He's saying Africa has over 20 US base, military base on the continent. So how can you have your frenemies? They are not actually enemies; they are frenemies.
Yeah, don't get me started on this one. There's way more than 20 bases in Africa.
Okay.
Way more.
Now, frenemies on your backyard. Okay. Now, Amunjale says, smash the like button, family. Okay, good. Let's smash the like buttons for this video. Then Desmond Emmanuel says, many of these conflicts are supported behind the scenes by the I don't want to call that now. And the European Gentiles, imperialists, as done in Congo and Mobutu, who was backed by the Americans and the French. See, whenever you mention French, is ikoko that comes into my mind. Ikoko. The meaning of ikoko is that animal that
What?
choose the bone of whatever it gets itself into. So they are not,
Oh,
what's it called? Now, Madam Allow says Yengeni Prigozhin, who threatened Russia recently, and the undertaker of certain powers to be in the world arena, had quite a bit to say about the recent military coup in Niger Republic and his opinion. Okay, now the stuff is this. Wow. Over to you, Alonso and Nubimi. What would be your take on this issue, the same issue we have been complaining about? Now they
Okay.
want to use another African country to go and wage war against another African country, just like we were catching ourselves as slaves for the Western world before. What would be your advice to those that can still listen?
Well, I would first and foremost, there's so much. I am going to give my advice, but I would like Yaden later on to talk more about the connection with David and His Majesty, but I will give you my opinion. And also, I
That
want
was
us to
good,
look
yeah.
at the book, to read the book, The Black Jacobians, in terms of what the French did and what the Africans in Hispaniola, Africans in Haiti, presently known as Haiti, went through. Now, based off of a Rastafari elder's opinion, he said years ago. Now, Brother Yadonis knows this elder, Brother Lawrence, Reverend Lawrence. I think he was inspired to remind me that it is important that all francophone countries, everywhere, all African francophone countries in the Caribbean and in Africa should protest and fight against France and demand reparation, especially the reparations back to Haiti. And that would break their backs, because they need to get up off of Nigeria's back. So thank you, Brother Lawrence. We have to come with a counterattack. And I think this is now the time for all francophone countries, near and far, on the continent and beyond. And I want to include Louisiana too.
Uh-oh.
You Louisianans, okay?
Yeah. I
It's
got that French
time
there, that
to get
French
going.
connection.
Okay. So that's my suggestion, that we really
Mm.
fight with our Nigerian brothers and our Niger brothers. You know, it's gonna be a moment before they start calling it the N-word, right? It's like they want to play with us. They pick this particular word so they can keep that N-word in their mouth. You know what I'm saying? But Niger, right? Aren't we, Brother Yadin? The Hebrew, the connection with the word negus, yes? So we're negus. They want to keep the Niger in there, almost like a fraternity joke, if you ask me, an international fraternity joke. So you understand? They want to keep on using that word, so they pick that area, and then they know the disruption. So everyone listening on the islands, in Tahitian islands, whoever that the French have mashed up, it's time for us to get together and start doing the mashing with our brothers and sisters. That whether it's economic, whatever, economic, academic, spiritual, start beating them drums. Start beating them drums on them. It's time. It's done. So give thanks.
Thank you so very much. Is Alonso there?
Yes, he is. So hold on. He's coming. Here you go, brother.
Okay.
Okay. Uh, we can talk about how Mexico and Ethiopia connected with
Well, it
so
wouldn't be relevant necessarily to listen. My position, unfortunately, for individuals such as our brethren that was on the show previously, it is my spirituality cannot be separated from my physicality, if we could use that word. So I don't know any of these issues personally. Um, I do believe in a God that is there for us and is willing to work miraculous works. In other words, I do accept that Jesus Christ can be born of a Virgin Mary, and therefore these issues that for the moment are outside of my hands or too big for me to take a significant action towards. Although educating and sharing with everyone like this knowledge and information is my ongoing step towards helping this situation. And but anyways, we must put our trust in a higher entity and accept that he would not allow man to destroy himself, which he has created in his image. Like everything, we're not fighting like France, and we're fighting like these principalities which are corrupt. Every country is like, for instance, His Majesty says it so clearly in different parts of his speeches, like to the United Nations and stuff like that. First of all, we must be willing to suffer and die for the safeguarding of truth and right and justice. And that's where, like, a good example like Jesus Christ that we do need, no matter what others may think,
Right.
having
Yeah.
that principality, and then the good,
They don't want to see us.
So it's
Unite.
like um uh
All they want to do is
say
keep us fighting with each other.
yeah,
That's it. That's all they
I
do.
too long to share the illusion when man is with man at the stock confrontation of his like immediate interest, or what's it no like what's it called, ah and yeah, I kind of lost. Thanks for the singing, man. You kind of threw me off a lot.
Okay.
But
Okay.
okay,
Alonso.
it is with economics weapons that these evils have been and can be destroyed. We
Mm,
Africans shall fight,
mm,
and we are confident that we shall win for the victory of good over evil. These are principles that, as smaller person I am, these are the only things that I can share with ones out there as far as what's going on
Okay.
physically on the continent. Like me over here can only just know that evil is very easy to manipulate because
Hmm.
they'll sell themselves out immediately for profit, for personal interest, and so I see that the will of the Most High be done, and
Okay.
we just go along with what's going on. I mean, we can get together and fight these things in different ways, shapes, and forms. Um, but they can also be of good, and they can do away with themselves and bring good at the same time. I mean, I really don't have much to say specific to the issues taking place in Africa.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so very much, Alonso. Now over to Rabbi.
okay, I want to show this book right here.
Good.
Um, our brother from Nigeria really
Mm.
likes that reasoning there. This book is called Anaja, Everybody's Roots.
Mm.
Um, and I like to discuss this particular book, but if you can get a copy of it, it might still be available. It's a very good book by this particular brother, making kind of a
Mm.
link with Rastafari and African traditions. In other words, interpreting Rastafari from African traditions. You know what I mean? And seeing Rastafari in the context. There's a lot of like I believe this is like your a lot of Igbo and Igbo words and words that you might. I love your pronunciation and thank you very much. Like to learn, to articulate as my brothers. And this particular book is very, very important. Anaja, Everybody's Roots.
Wow.
The Ibo or the Igbo, I tell you. I do agree with the brother when he mentioned that Nigeria, his advice would be that Nigeria should stay out of it
Mm.
as much as possible to protect its particular interests and not get caught up in the France or the rants thing. To our sister Emmanuel, I think she's really on to something there, where she said that all of the Franco what did you say? Francophones. The Francophones? Okay. I actually said to her Francophobe. Even though I have French in my background over here, I call it Francophobe in a sense. Louisiana, New Orleans, we know what happened, with when France kind of sold their territory and the British fighting the Spanish and the French, and they will fight each other, you know what I mean? And sometimes they will support us or they will have us come into their business, you know what I
Mm.
mean, in order to defeat their European brothers. So getting caught up in their politics is definitely not a good thing. But I think that those who do share a connection with France among the diaspora and among other African and even other nations should boycott or do certain things to affect the economics. We may not be on the ground, we can't fight or support right there. But I think that if we do have this French connection, so to speak, in the diaspora on the continent, we should have, we should protest, in some way, economic protest. And I wanted to share this as I heard my brother speak and my other brother sing that song. I wanted to say this right here. Was Maxie said at Stanford University in 1968, but he also shared these same words in 1963, that until the philosophy which holds one race superior and another inferior is finally and permanently discredited and abandoned, because obviously they think that France interest is more important than Niger, and then the other African nations' interests, their own colonial, post-colonial interests, that until they are no longer first and second class citizens of any nation, that until the color of a man's skin is of no more significance than the color of his eyes, that until the basic, we're not talking about extras, we're not talking about, you know, um, high level, but basic human rights are guaranteed to all without regard to race, that until that day, the dream of everlasting peace and world citizenship and the rule of international morality will remain but a fleeting illusion to be pursued but never attained. We got to recognize whether we're pursuing something that's an illusion at this very time and have to look at, well, what really is going on right now? Just a little more. And until the ignoble but unhappy regimes that hold our brothers in Angola and Mozambique and South Africa in subhuman bondage have been toppled and destroyed, we can update that with Niger and the other countries today. Until bigotry and prejudice, it may not be overt racial bigotry or prejudice, but it's economic, it's financial, it's educational, you know what I mean? It's the resources, and malicious and inhuman self-interest have been replaced by understanding and tolerance and goodwill. Remember, all of these are clauses until, we're not there just yet, but until all Africans stand and speak as free human beings, equal in the eyes of the Almighty. Until that day, the African continent, he didn't say Ethiopia, he didn't say this part of that, but the whole continent shall not know peace. We Africans will fight if necessary, and we know that we shall win, as we are confident in the victory of good over evil. The reason why I'm sharing this word here is as I listen to everyone give their advice or recommendations in this present situation, I recall to mind these words here and the conditional. This is not unconditional. There are conditions. Until this happens, we have to be ready to fight. And it doesn't mean that we have to fight with bombs or guns, right? But we can fight with economics. We can fight with boycotting. We can fight with social media. We can join with our fellows in Africa to put pressure on France and put pressure on the Europeans. And one thing they don't like, the French don't like, is embarrassment. They want to keep a good face. French, to me, seem all about their image. You know what I mean? They're trying to keep a good face. And therefore, I agree with my sister that we who do have a French connection, or those who do directly, I think it's your duty. Because if it's Niger today, it can be you tomorrow. It can be other countries tomorrow. So that's just some of my quick advice. I'm still learning and catching up on this situation that's very fluid and moving. And those who are not able to, please pray for the victory of good over evil. Please pray and support, even one's prayers. If they're true believers, as many of us seek to be, will help in this victory of good over evil. So that's my brief words right here. And I hope to be able to contribute more, hopefully in the future, as I become more aware of what's going on. And thank you so much, said folks.
Yeah.
Okay, you really said very, very vital, a lot. You've said a lot already, but let me, for the benefit of those that are not even aware of what is going on, Niger, a neighboring country to Nigeria, happens to overthrow their government. The military boys had a coup d'etat in which they overthrew the government there that, according to them, was not useful to the populace, because they were, not my own word, they were seeing him as a puppet to France, to French, to Francais, whatever way we can pronounce France. He was a puppet to them, according to their statement, and they planned a coup. They overthrew him. But I was expecting all the people that voted for the government that was overthrown to come up and protest against the military boys. But what did I see? What we were seeing is that the people of Niger, they were jubilating.
Mm.
They were jubilating that the so-called elected president was overthrown. They were also jubilating that, and they were saying that they appreciate the fact that France dominance in their place is gone. They were lighting, they were setting a France flag on fire.
Mm.
The people, the civilians, went in mass number to go and attack France facility, setting it up on fire. And they were calling on Russia. They were claiming allegiance, allegiance to Russia.
Mm.
Now, if that was what they were actually doing, according to what we saw online, they were raising the flag of Russia. They were happy with this and they were setting France flag on fire. But now let's look at this.
Mm.
They were also saying that they are being over impoverished by France. They are the major supplier of uranium that is being used to produce light, to supply electricity in France, to produce a lot of stuffs in France. But in Niger, they don't have light themselves.
Mm.
They have been contributing millions of dollars to France, whereas they are living like a beggar in their own country. Now, the people that are supposed to be crying foul against the coup plotters, they are rejoicing only for ECOWAS to rise up and to say the fact that they want to go and initiate a military what's it called action against the coup plotters and to reinstate the former president.
Mm.
Now, the danger in this is that we are so close that if this guy sees that they have nothing to lose again, they can start entering into Nigeria to cause havoc. The Senate, the lawmakers in Nigeria, they went against our executive arm of government that they should not initiate that. But America, France, and which other country, they've been putting pressure on Nigeria because Nigeria happens to be the Nigerian president happens to be the chairman of ECOWAS.
Mm.
They've been putting pressure on the new president of Nigeria that is less than 6 months old. They've been mounting pressure that they want to attack Niger. Now, we all know that we don't need to be told. France is highly interested in Niger and they are ready to do whatever it takes for them not to lose that access to their uranium. So must we African be used as a stooge or as a tool to fight our own brother for the benefit of a country that we know that they are parasitic in nature? I don't think so. So with that being said, we want to believe that what we have looked at from the belief system of the Rastafari and the exemplary life of the pivotal leader, the major leader of the Rastafari movement, who happens to be His Royal Majesty, Emperor Haile Selassie, and his dedicated disciples that we have seen across board, of which Bob Marley was part of them, that was singing. Because I heard when one of us was talking, I was saying that even now, I think it was a rabbi that mentioned it, that maybe now majority of the kind of song that is going out from the people that are even practicing the Rastafari now is like they are competing for nomination on Oscar or whatever award,
Grammy.
instead of bringing out
That's
songs.
true. Grammys and Oscars.
Yes, instead of bringing out songs that are, songs that even when you cannot say, oh, I belong to this religion, I will not sing it. Is it redemption song? Redemption song. Let me tell you, redemption song, whether you are a Christian, you are a Muslim, you are an herbalist, you are an Ifa worshiper, you are even worshiping water, in Nigeria, everybody sing that song.
Mm.
How
Wow.
long shall we kill our prophet?
Wow.
Everybody sing that song. Those are songs that are relatable. But now, because of the same greed that we are
Mm.
talking about,
Wow, wow. It froze a little bit. Hopefully he
Oh
unfreeze.
man.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just getting so deep, and we want to thank the Most
Yeah,
High.
right on that point. Right on
Yeah,
that point. Right on
you
that
know,
point. They had to cut it.
exactly. And interesting, Yadin, would you share with the people what Selassie, no, Berhane Selassie, who Berhane Selassie, the name for Bob Marley? Would you explain his baptismal name? Because that just when he started singing it, the Most High, the Spirit was like, oh yes, remind them of who of
Okay,
his name.
yeah, yeah. Just basically the light of the Trinity, the light of the Trinity. So Bob kind of fulfilled that in being that light to His Majesty's teaching and to his works. Being that shining that light, illuminating through his music, through his work, through his life, the light of the Trinity, Burhana Selassie, the light of the Trinity. So yes, yes, yes.
And
I think what happened, yeah, there
Mhm,
maybe the connection had went
mhm.
down on
Kind
their
of
part.
remember back in the day, I don't know if anybody know the history of South Africa. They used to edit, they used to cut out, they used to take reggae albums. The apartheid government did not allow South Africans even to hear reggae. They used to scratch the album. They used to destroy it. They used to confiscate it. So this reminds me of like the new version of what's going on. Now, what I wanted to tell the
Hmm.
brother Yadin, is when he was speaking, and there's a couple things. I know Jim had a question about the Torah in Hebrew, and how it relates to Ethiopia, but I just wanted to tell the Cetros, and what you were mentioning about how we can fight through social media, through our creativity, through all that. I think Nigeria is
Hmm.
being
Hmm.
attacked is because they have all the infrastructure that's needed for the social propaganda, for the movies, for the we already have Nollywood, right? We have
Hollywood.
Hollywood,
Yep, yep, yep.
Hollywood. So
Hmm.
Nollywood is
Hmm.
like an estranged cousin. Is that what they're trying to do? And I think that's
Hmm.
what's happening. Why they're even surrounding Niger, and like even trying to, hey, we're come on, we're a part of the family. Aren't you part of the? Aren't you Hollywood? Didn't Netflix pick up a video?
Oh, but
Da, 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 da,
but-
da. And I think that's
they're
what.
coming on. They're coming on. They're
Yes.
coming on again.
So, brother.
You were just at the point of saying greed, and then you froze, Cetros. You said you were
oh,
speaking about the greed, and it froze. I
oh,
don't know if you can pick up from there. Give thanks,
okay,
Emmanuel. Mm.
okay. So sorry for that. That's part of what I want to believe is one of the spirits from France that is trying to cut off this network, but they've lost it.
They lost it.
Because I was even singing my own
Brother
version.
Hebrew. Tell it, brother Ebo. Tell it.
I was even singing my own version of what's this Bob Marley. I said, "How long shall we kill Nigerians when they have so much to lose?
Mm.
Why should we sell fellow Africans to Mr. Francis that calls his name Mr. France. Even the French that are watching, tell your president we are not so dumb. We can see the writings on the table. Uranium is what you are looking for. We shall not fight ourselves because this is redemption time. Redemption time has come to Africa already, and is
Mm.
no longer news that we shall not fight ourselves to benefit
Mm.
the West, because we know that France is just like an houseboy to Africa. If
Hey,
we
kid.
take back everything that they
Tell
are stolen from us. So you might be, if you are from France, you might be looking at it that you're not going to give this boy visa. Sorry, I am not planning to leave Africa.
You know what, my brother? Take that song right there, put up as a short. It's things like that. Even
Hmm.
YouTube
I was
has a
gonna
short.
say that was just absolutely brilliant, Deo.
Brilliant.
Deo, that
the
was
video.
absolutely that was
Without
you should make a clip of that and
Mm-hmm.
really use that. That was
For real.
I kept did you just do that off the top of your head or did you
Damn,
really write that
I don't know.
down?
did it
It's
on top of his
just
head.
Right
spontaneous.
there?
Yo,
You know,
Just spontaneous.
please.
they
See,
own
Please,
a
that's
please.
genius.
Rastafari by blood.
Whoa, whoa. You
No,
see,
no, because it's a message.
when I'm telling you that I have my lineage link up to His Royal Majesty Haile Selassie.
Yes. Yes.
I'm one of the black Jews in Africa that will
That's
write
right.
to the people of France and to the West that our people can no longer be subjected to the mediocrity of selling each another for the piecemeal of glass,
Mm.
umbrella, and all the junks I saw in Badagry. I saw gunpowder that was used to sell 40 slaves.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's what the brother was saying.
I,
He said he
I
wanted
did
the
a documentary
dates.
on that. I went there. I wasn't told. And to tell you this, that was my native
is
homeland. It's I got there to discover that it's my uncle that is the present chief of that particular slave trade zone now. So
Mm.
I'm not talking because I read it somewhere. I'm talking because I can still feel the pain of those people. I enter into those rooms where the slaves were locked, they were chained, and they were padlocked. It still smells horrible till date.
Mm. Mm.
Now you want to come and replay back the evil that you have done in the past. Little wonder I can never agree with my fellow Nigerians that are traveling and running out of the continent to pack themselves into a deep freezer called Canada. Canada is opening its borders now
Mm.
for willing slaves to migrate.
Really? Are they
Yes,
really? I
Mm.
did not
Mm.
hear about this yet. Is
Yes.
this really
Canada,
happening?
they've opened their borders to
Mm.
Africans.
Are you
Willing,
kidding me?
Mm.
yes, willing slaves just come over. We have prepared places. And where are they taking them to? They are taking them to suburbs. They are taking them to
Wow.
places where
I'm not seeing
it's
any of this in the news
extremely,
here.
extremely cold,
Killing
that
them.
even they themselves that are Canadian, they know that this place is cold. So I call such
It,
places the deep
Deep
freezer of the
freezer.
world.
Deep freezer.
Exactly.
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm from Minnesota, and that's like right next to Canada. And let me
Mm.
tell you, folks, Canada is an ice box for 7 months of the year. Okay, it's an ice
So
box.
it's a new trafficking. It's a new thing. And I know Yadin was going to say something about your connection, brother Dale, because just again, and also Alonso wanted to say something so important.
No,
So let us say both of them because we appreciate love your leadership and this podcast so we can come together.
And with no ad hominems thrown between anybody. Nobody said anything negative to another person at all. It was respective. I really appreciated the brothers getting it down with it, and like you
Mm.
said, chopping it up. Like you said, he wants to get in on that, and that debate was beautifully done, and everybody kept their cool, and I really appreciated that.
Mm.
And
I
thank you,
agree.
and ones, for in the chat and being patient with us. And this is beautiful. So I didn't want to break the energy. The energy is so beautiful and flowing that we will grow again. Like we when before you left, I wanted to say that the reason why Nigeria is being attacked is because the infrastructure is there for the psyops, for the media, social media, commercial, because that's how the West does their thing. It's nothing new under the sun. Whether they had the e-boats for sale in their little penny magazines, or they have us selling ourselves out on the music videos, any means necessary. And I think, they're trying to use the already established Nigerian media, film industry, and all that, the oil, all that, the whole infrastructure to, like you said, turn against itself, turn against its brothers. Not anymore. Go ahead, Doug.
And we also need the artists too. If this gets around to everybody, please like the video, like this stream right here. But the artists, hopefully there'll be artists that will use their music and their voice, their talent, and their calling to speak up. We need this to be spoken. You very well articulate. You make it very clear what's going on, Setros, and your wife. Thank you so much. You really give
Wow.
good clarity.
Wow. Thank you so very
And
much.
simplify it. You know what I mean? Within the light of Rastafari, definitely. That music is. Please, I didn't get your wife's name. I would like to be respectful and get her.
Her name is Joke.
Okay.
Joke. But when you spell it in English, it's called joke. But please, she's not joke, she's Joke. Say that.
Okay.
You can imagine. I'm teaching a rabbi how to pronounce.
Yeah. Language. I want you to
Also
get
known
this
as
book.
Babylicious.
I want you to get this book if you can. Anaja, Everybody's Roots, if you can, or I'll try to find it and send it to you wherever. Get a copy of this because
Can we
this.
talk a little bit about the David connection? Because you know what? I know this is probably going to be for another show about the emanation situation and the emanation question. So, brother Setros, brother Deo.
Wait, what is emanation, real quick? Tell me.
That is the thing where people ask a question. Remember, there was a little banter we were talking about Yeshua and His Majesty. The connect is to David, so we can probably have another show about that.
Okay.
More on that.
Well, it goes back to there's a video, there's an interview. A lot of people say that His Majesty denied being Christ, or he denied being God, or he denied this or that, and they point to this video, Oswald Hoffman, where they basically say that at that time, was it Ken Royal Train? Which video was that? They say that many Ethiopians and other people around the world looked at Haile Selassie as like either reincarnation of Jesus Christ or something to that effect. And His Majesty said that I've heard about this idea. I've also spoken to certain Rastafarians and made it very clear to them that I'm a man, I'm immortal, I will be replaced by the oncoming generation, and that they should never make a mistake in pretending or assuming that man is emanated from a deity. That's exactly basically what he said. Maybe I missed a word, but I think I got the whole thing. I memorized it. Did you hear him mention Christ anywhere there? You hear any mention of Jesus? He said, I'm a man. I am mortal. I will be replaced by the oncoming generation. So we as Rastafari, in that context, will be the oncoming generation. Some people may look at that and say, well, because you say he's a man, he's mortal. Therefore, he's not Jesus Christ, who some would say he's God. But then notice, Jesus died, right? They say he died, right? That's what they preach. So he must have been mortal, right? It said that death came by man, and the resurrection of the dead also comes by man, right? He's a man, he's mortal. Was not Christ replaced by the oncoming generation? Yes, the disciples. The disciples, that's what became the Nazarenes, and later on they were called Christians, so forth and so on. But what he says is that he spoke to the Rastafarians that we should not make a mistake in pretending or assuming that man is emanated from a deity. Now, I don't know what people think about that, but I'll say this. Look up emanation philosophy. Everybody go Google. Google emanation philosophy. Emanation philosophy basically is an idea that goes against the traditional man was created in the image and after the likeness, male and female. Basically, emanation philosophy says that we come from a God or something like an evolution, a spiritual devolution from God. Like we just kind of like come about by a process over time. While the biblical view is that we are created, that there's this creation, the earth. Rasta man talk about creation or iration. We talk about the creation, protecting creation. We talk about man and woman having a kind of a equal divinity according to the Bible. Let's make male and female, he created them. So basically, emanation philosophy is a philosophy that it's like a Arianism. If you know anything about Christianity, Arianism, it goes against the biblical narrative that man was created. All of the African traditions, most of them that I've know of, speaks somewhat similar. Even the Twi people in South Africa, they have an old tradition that basically is very much reflective of the Bible. If you look at what they believe, their oldest belief, that man was created by God, and when man was created by God, they were male and female. So emanation philosophy is something that we categorically reject within the context of what His Majesty speaks about. It's another spirituality that diverges from what the master believed and what he taught, and what our other African traditions also teach, that we were created, and when we were created as humanity, we were created male and female, and male and female is
And right,
in the
so
image
you
after
do
likeness.
denounce all Darwinism, right?
No. Darwin is a confusing subject matter for most, because Darwin did not make the claims that many racists and kind of the racist scientists made claims on Darwin's research. Darwin himself did not say a lot of things that people who took his ideas and used his ideas, built up on his ideas. So we don't reject
Okay.
Darwin. We do know that there's evolution. There is evolution in species. You know what I mean? For example, we are babies, right? We are little cells, sperm and ovum, and then we are born, then we grow, we get older. So there is process of evolution. We can see it in different species, the wolf and the fox and so forth and so on, the dog, so forth and so on. But as far as like we came from a monkey, Bob Marley said it best. The monkey is like still here. You know what I mean? On that level. But we don't reject science. We don't reject science, but there's ideas that were racially motivated that were added to scientific facts. You know what I'm saying? They are scientific facts, and people interpreted these things. You know what I mean?
Right.
Go back
So
to
would you deny Darwin's theory? As far as would you base evidence from what you see? What confuses me sometimes is that some people believe in these. I just want to say it in my way, my way of thought. I think there's a lot of science that is pretty much comes from these colonializations, and that the science has been incorrect from the beginning. And I think there's a lot of mistakes made in, and we know that science has, evolved, and I think there's a lot of mistakes been made. I've heard, and, I know it's a sensitive subject, but I've heard a lot of theories now that the out of Africa theory is, been tabled. I don't know if you have an opinion on that.
Jim, let me come in quick on that. Now we have you, the real Jim. Do you believe that you can be cloned?
Say again.
Do you believe that you can be cloned?
mm,
So if you
Me?
are cloned, that means there is an original gene and there is a fake gene. So there is
Okay.
pure science and there is adulterated science, science
mm,
that have been
mm,
tweaked to
mm,
favor the people that are selling fish that we call
Mm.
selfish interest. People that have selfish interest. So they tweak science because God is the God of science.
Right.
True.
So when
True.
it is now altered, it's
Mm.
no longer pure science. Otherwise, how will God create the first thing? What was the first thing that God created? How will He create light first? Why is light more important?
To see what you're doing.
So, to see what?
To see what
To
is
see what you're doing. To
To see
see what
what
you're
it's
doing.
doing. Because science is logical.
Mm.
Logical. So whenever anything is not logical in science, it has defeated the main purpose. Light is logical for the mixture of the mud, for the mixture of the right clay, for the placement of Adam to sleep, so that the ribs can be utilized as a womb
a
man,
man with
a
a
man with a womb. So if it is not logical, then it has been adulterated. And there is something I learned from you, Jim. I can never forget it.
Mm.
Do you know what it is? You opened my eyes. You did what God did in the beginning. That He said, in the beginning, God created the world, and He said, let there be light. The light that you showed me was this. Why
Mm.
do we call the writing of words spelling? They were actually spelling
Mm.
our forefathers. They were spelling them. They were casting spells on them to sign our brothers and sisters, to sign the grandparents of Rabbi, to sign the grandparents of Nubin me, to sign the grandparents of different African across the globe, to sell them for what? For a piece of bottle of gin. I saw the bottle of gin that was exchanged for about 5 to 10 slaves. That is not business transaction. That is spelling. You cast spells on them. So the science of spells was used. This
Mm.
spelled our forefathers, whether we believe it or not. These things are in existence. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but I believe that science, when it is not adulterated, is
Mm.
pure science. But once it is adulterated, it does not conform to normal, what's it called?
Logic.
Logic. That's just it.
Gene, you remember gunpowder?
Mm.
That when gunpowder, the history tells us certain either China or Asian countries, far Asian countries, were using gunpowder for entertainment, like for entertainment. And then other people came and saw this and they said, we can use this to shoot lead through a tube and make a gun. So
Mm.
right there we have science. The gunpowder itself, it could be used for this, it could be used for that. His Majesty speaks about how unless it's used for beneficial purposes, you know what I mean? You
Mm.
know,
Yeah, yeah, it's a great point because the way they killed off the Native American Indians in America was through the use of gunpowder. And one of the greatest ways they did it was they have these rich white men come out on trains, and there was these huge buffalo slaughters because they knew that that was the Indians' food. So they would come out and they would park off a huge herd, and all these rich gentlemen would step off the train and just slaughter. And you could go look it up on Google. There's mountains of buffaloes. It was a
it's horrible.
travesty,
It's
and
horrible.
and that's
It's
and
horrible.
that's what gunpowder
Mm.
is. I mean, you know, uh,
And also, not to cut you, but also South Africa. I remember my
mhm.
earthly father taught me this, how when the Dutch came to South Africa with British backing, they
Oh,
had the Gatler gun. the Gatla gun. You remember, like with Zulu, Shaka Zulu, the Gatla gun, where this gun not only could shoot one, but could shoot, where they have a whole line of bullets. You know what I mean? A rapid fire. So it
Oh,
was
for
used
sure.
everywhere.
Like the grandfather of machine guns, it looks like, of automatic weapons, which is what's killing everybody these days in the West.
So that's just a bad use of science. You know what I
Hey,
mean?
Rabbi.
May I say
Hey,
something too? Hold on,
And it
Jamal.
goes back to the
yes,
tree of
ma'am.
knowledge, actually. It goes back to the tree of the knowledge of the science. The
Yes,
tree of the knowledge of the science of good and evil. Come forward.
Brother
Hmm.
Yada. And what about His Majesty? He was one of the first people to talk about the disarmament of nuclear weapons. Can you mention that to the ones and ones? His Majesty did talk about.
Oh yeah, his majesty don't get credit for that. No, often credit for that. That actually he stood it. He was the voice of conscience to those other leaders because that grace of, we could say, that grace of God, if we would say, upon his majesty, that he could go amongst these Europeans and others and be the voice of reason, like the conscience. And he was very much stood against, he saw the dangers of the potential dangers of this science in the wrong hands, of nuclear, atomic weapons and nuclear weapons. Did you know the first bomb was called the Trinity? Just a little footnote right there. So he basically stood against it very much so. So he was very much about the disarmament because he saw the dangers of nuclear weapons. But yet at the same time, he also saw the good of nuclear technology. But how do we teach the science of nuclear and not know whether somebody's going to use it to bring light or somebody's going to use it to create a bomb and kill millions of people? You know what I mean? It goes back to a very ancient thing. The whole thing about the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, I think, is basically speaking about science. You
Okay.
know, you
Okay.
know.
Um, at this point, I want to ask the last question of the day, and we'll wrap it up from here.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes to you, Rabbi.
What's this?
Why is the Rastafarian New Year different from the world's recognized New Year?
The Rastafari New Year properly would be what Haile Selassie recognized the New Year to be, and that's roughly around September 11th.
Perfect.
Except on leap years is September 12th.
Are you kidding me? 9/11?
You didn't put
September?
that together? We was talking about that for years. We said, look at 9/11
I
happens
cannot believe this. Are you
on
kidding me?
Ethiopian New Year. 9/11 happened on Ethiopian New Year because
Unreal.
there's
I
more
mean,
to that.
I'm absolutely just blown away right now. What the hell?
9/11. If you also notice that they've done a lot of things on this particular date. So maybe we need to have a whole other discussion about dates and times. Well, actually, the reason why is around September. September is also roughly September, October, when the Hebrew, some will say the Jewish New Year begins. But actually, this is also a time when the holy year kind of ends. Like from April, May, where they have Passover, it goes 7 months. There are feasts and festivals, and they kind of end around September, October. But this is also a change of time. Like if we look at it, it seems to conform with ancient traditions that understood time in a different way from the Gregorian. The Gregorian calendar, there was a whole thing, the Gregorian calendar. I don't know if the video is still out there. There's a video on YouTube why the Gregorian calendar is evil. Now, of course, a calendar may not be, quote, evil in the sense of as people interpret it, but why is because they change times and laws. Not to get biblical, but it says in the last days, or when the times of the nation states come on, the times of the Gentiles, they will seek to change times and laws. And think about it. If you can change somebody's perspective of time, right? You could almost do anything to a person. Think about it.
Okay, but when you say times and laws, when you say times and laws, are you
Mhm.
saying anything about Noahide laws?
Well, you going? We're gonna have to have a reasoning, Gene.
Okay, all right. Because
Not
I was
Okay.
not that
wondering on that.
not the Noah high laws, but I'm saying times and laws have been changed since the rise of the Greco-Romans coming forward to the latter-day Europeans. They have changed times and laws. For example,
Mhm.
I,
Sabbath, Sunday.
I mean, yeah. For example, in the Catholicism, they said
Yeah,
the
I was gonna
Sabbath
say
they moved
Sabbath.
to
Yeah, I
Sunday.
should have said that first.
And the
Okay.
Gregorian calendar. Quickly, October. Anybody know what an octagon is? The octo. Octo means what
Right.
in Latin?
Eight, eight,
8. But what month is October? The
10.
number.
Don't make
Oh,
no sense.
okay. December, Deca in Greek means
That's
what?
mind blowing right there. Wow, that
10,
is
You see what
mind
I'm saying?
blowing.
So they
10.
changed laws and times, or times and laws, and this is what one of the big struggles. That's why it's so important for us to investigate ancient traditions. You know what I mean? African traditions, ancient traditions of time, ancient traditions of laws, other laws, because we all are living in this time of the Gentiles. That's what the end of
All
the
right,
Lawlessness.
world.
we
But,
gotta we gotta
Brother,
let we gotta let the Centros go.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
gotta
yeah, yeah,
let them
yeah,
go. There's
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah,
late.
yeah.
Brother
You know
Yaga,
what we are
one
going to
more
do?
question. Brother Iodonis, is it said that also that 9/11 is the time of the Virgin and Mashiach's birthday? Now, I could be wrong on that, but I thought I had read that.
Well, there are some Ethiopians that hold to ancient tradition that Jesus Christ, as well as his mother, was born on the same day, roughly September 11th. There's an ancient tradition, and there's some other scholarship that points to definitely that he was born somewhere in that particular season. But
The
yes,
Virgin
that is.
Virgo season. The
Hello,
Virgin.
hello, Rabbi. Rabbi, let me quickly say this. We have a new person, Tuados. Nice having you, Tuados. Let's welcome Tuados. Okay.
Oh,
Welcome,
wait,
Brother Taurus.
Tuwojos came on. Is it the brother?
Greetings, greetings.
Greetings.
Okay. Now,
Greetings.
let me quickly say this. Rabbi, this is just beginning. We are going to bring you at
Okay.
another time,
Yes.
and that will be around September 11th. And the title of our discussion is going to be the science of 9/11 and war
Oh,
dates. The science of
Nice.
9 and 11 and war dates.
the science
The
of 9/11 and the second part, and
war date, war.
War. WK.
The science of 9/11
and war.
and war dates.
You wrote 9/11. Speaking. They're not in 9/11.
The science
Okay.
of 9/11 and war dates.
Yeah, I got it. Dates. Okay,
Yeah.
dates. Okay, got it.
So, because
Mhm.
let's just give ourselves a little bit of head ups, because what we are going to be considering is we are going to be asking ourselves numerous questions. Are war planned? Are evil occurrences staged? And by the time we run through the numbers, we run through the dates, we are going to be seeing the miracle of strategic conceptualization and boxing of the whole world into a bubble burst. A
Mm.
bubble burst. Let me just put it that way.
That's a good
So,
articulation. Good
yeah.
articulation.
So we
Well
are going to
said.
go through this. But on the basis of what we have discussed tonight, I can tell you this is
We
not
need to keep this live stream and go.
tonight's live stream. I think we are going to replay it personally. We are going to rewatch it because it is mind blowing. Mind blowing. Every contribution, everybody that came on board was so on point. My brain is just loaded with numerous good informations that will help me. And before give our what's it called, our parting words, we want to tell you that one of the principles that we can derive from His Royal Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie and his disciples, his real disciples, is the fact that they were so full of love for the community, the people, the less privileged, those that cannot pay back the good deed that was done to them. I remember His Royal Majesty, you know, taking care of a very poor young chap, providing him with pen, with writing materials and the likes in one of the read up that I did about him, and sending the boy through school that was supposed it was supposed to be a subject. Now, we are not on this platform. We have been on this platform for several years. We are not on this platform just to talk about, oh, this is what is supposed to be happening in the world, and we just finish all the grammar there. We are imploring everyone, we are begging everyone that is coming in contact with our work, our presentation, try and be another emperor of your community. Try and be another emperor of the people, the less privileged around you. And that is why we have decided, you see what we are putting on? We set up a foundation
Where's
to
my shirt? I want my shirt.
your shirt is coming very soon. We set up a foundation to help the less privileged African youth. We ask them what we are talking of the less privileged, indigent but industrious, indigent but diligent African youth. Those are the people we support, because you might be indigent and you're not industrious, you are not our type. You are indigent, but you are diligent. We will support you. We pay for their training in numerous skills, and when they are done with that training, we set them up. And we have about how many weeks back, we have our latest boy that's concluded his training in photography. We have successfully opened his first what's it called, mini photo studio for him, and as at yesterday, he got his first event coverage. He got his first event coverage, and I think I want to share my screen with you to see one of the outputs from the mini studio that was open for him. One of the picture, the young boy, the boy what's it called, um, was homeless on the streets before we picked him up. And within 3 months, his life was transformed. I want to believe Emperor will be very, very happy that he has a black Jew here in Nigeria that is doing something that is part of what his dream is. So I want us to replicate this so that when you come on board, you tell us what you are doing in your community. You tell us, okay, I've done XYZ. I'm trying to look for, just a minute, please. I'm trying to look for sample of what's it called? Okay, I think I have sample of the picture now. Let me just share a little bit of this with us. Can anyone see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Okay. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. Okay. This is example of the picture. This is one of the picture that was taken in the mini studio that was open for this young chap that was trained. This is another one here. This is another one here.
Right.
This is another one and
Beautiful.
another one. So within 3 months, this boy was his life was changed for the better. And that's the essence of, we shouldn't just be complaining about, oh, the government is not doing this and that is not happening. But the question is, what have we done? So we have a foundation that we are using to support the less privileged African youth. If you want to see more of our work, you can go to, I'm trying to call up our website. You can go to our website, cetrosfoundation.org. This is our website displayed there, cetrosfoundation.org. You can see sample of what we have been doing so far. We go to interior villages to pick these youth. We go on the streets to pick some of these youths that are going through
And on
challenges.
top of it, you helped the Fantastic Four family out, and you made a great donation and changed the father's life after such a tragic situation. Your heart is blessed for that, and it's such a wonderful thing. And don't forget, you have the carpenter gentleman. He is such a wonderful success story. Also, I would love to keep an update on that. Thank you so much. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Okay, the capital gentle, the young boy we pick from the slum that is constructing a two-story building on the top of water, on top of the coastal water. He's been traveling to different countries now, making impact, building structures for businesses. So that's one of our story. The Fantastic Four he mentioned was quadruplet, a set of quadruplet that lost their mom immediately after birth. We adopted them and they are doing fine now. We're able to raise funds for the dad to take care of them. We have that ongoing and several others. So if you like, if you go through our website, check through what we have done so far. If you feel you want to sponsor, you want to support us in any of the functions we have been performing, you can feel free if you are convinced. And presently, this new academic year, we have picked about two pupils that we are sponsoring. They are in the elementary school. Their parents are so poor they couldn't even afford basic primary education for them. So we have offered to provide them with 1 year scholarship.
Mm.
So we offered two pupils 1 year scholarship. And guess how much is the bill for 1 year scholarship? It will amaze you. Is not up to
$150.
it's not up to $100.
Uh-oh.
It's
Is it more like
it's,
500?
it's about 90 dollars or so
$20.
$90?
Wow.
for for a child.
$90. See?
$90. I mean,
So,
come on.
Man,
now
that's wonderful. That's
For a
blessing
year. For a year.
for a year.
for
Wow.
Oh, okay. For we have what's it called? Sorry, I made a mistake there. We have three semester, not semester. They call it 3 terms. We that's a year. That's it.
Mm.
That's a year. So
Okay.
like if by the time we have textbook and everything is less than $100.
And brother, I'm sorry to say, people spend more on that in 2 days on DoorDash here in the States. Okay. They need to dash themselves walking around the block or going to the gym or something. But yeah.
Or learn how to cook, maybe.
Oh no, that's why they have that those fresh box, fresh.
You know
Sponsor
the
a child.
you know
Definitely
the funniest
considering that.
Then you mail
you know
you.
the funniest stuff.
Mm.
One
Mm.
of the one of the pupil that we offered a year scholarship to, 3 days later, the mother that is the breadwinner of the family passed on. So we had to make that boy's own 2 year scholarship. So we promised the family a 2 year scholarship so that the father can get his feet in looking for a job to do to assist the family more. So we are so grateful. We are hitting the ground running. So as many of you that are interested in sponsoring two children, look at me speaking bad English. As many of you that are interested in sponsoring a pupil, two pupils, 10, just let us know so that we get you the name of the pupil. We give you, we'll do a video that becomes your adopted child. So you will provide you detailed information about that child, how the performance. But mind you, we set exams for them. It's only the best that succeed in that exam that qualifies for our grant, our scholarship. So with that being said, in a nutshell, we appreciate every one of us that have been online, and we want to have our closing remark now on what we have discussed today. We have looked, we have looked at. You said what? We want. Oh, sorry, my wife is telling me something that we should appreciate all the sponsors that have made all our efforts possible. We really thank you. We appreciate you for what you have done for us, supporting us so that we can touch the lives of the African youths and to also train them in a way and manner of reasoning so that they don't get bought out by this our Western friends that are always having our interest from the other side. So, with that being said, we want a kind of wrap up, 1 minute conclusion. I will end with the rabbi, but let's
No, no,
start.
to Wodros, because I know part of, maybe we can give to Wodros some like 5 minutes. I'll short back my time, but I know Brother Tuodros has been sitting. I just didn't know if you know,
Oh,
Brother Tuodros.
sorry, I my mistake for that, please. Brad Tojos, are you there? Don't mind my English. My English is very powerfully spiced with African intonation. So, Brad Tojos, over to you.
No, greetings, brother. Greetings, brother. Your English is fine, brother. No worries. I'm a guest here, so just listening and really inspired by everything. And it's great what you're doing. And yeah, I'm just listening to learn more. And yeah, yeah. So just I don't have much to say. So you can continue. Give thanks. Give thanks. We
Okay.
appreciate you. We appreciate you, brother.
Wow. Thank you so very much.
We
But
need
let
more
me
brothers like you, man. Give thanks. Give thanks.
well, thank you so very much, sir. Let me just summarize what you missed. You missed a lot of. Maybe after now, you sit down with a bottle of chilled water and go through what you have discussed. Don't take Coke because it's just like the word Coke.
Mm,
It has more sugar than your health needs. So
mm,
you need to go through what we have gone through. Rabbi did a dissecting of gray areas. Alonso also came in, did some dissecting with us. Nubi, me, Jim Barak, Madam Olaumi, and what's it called? Ajomale, our aggressive historians. I know that he gave it to you people hot. Whenever I see him online, we know that that day is going to be hot soup. So, and we have our friend here, Desmond Emmanuel. I hope one of these days Desmond Emmanuel will come up. No, Desmond Emmanuel came up. Amujale was there. Madam Olaumi. If I'm missing anybody, please pardon me. But Madam Claudia. Now, what we looked at was understanding the Rastafari culture. We're able to remove the misconception that was there in the sense that it was today we got the clarity between Rastafarian and Rastafari. So we are not following the Rastafarian culture. We are actually following the Rastafari culture. And it's so good to be so exposed to a lot of info about what the movement is all about. And this is one of the movement that is needed to reshape the mindset of people. And part of the tool that the Rastafarian culture was used to deliver its message to people like us in Africa was through a messenger called Bob Marley, of which I have been anointed this morning to go and write up a proper song that just came out of my mind and I sang it into the air, which is talking about how long the nation song, how long do we kill our prophet? How long do we want to kill our Nigerians? So I'm going to work on that and see how this my popcorn voice will be. So with that being said, I want the first person to go now should be Jim. Where are you? Nwaobodo. Chukudi.
Djibouti checking in.
It's not Djibouti, it's Djibouti.
Okay, Chukudi. So your wrap up in 1 minute.
The rabbi gave such a beautiful understanding for me on the Zionism and the Zion aspect and how it reflected back to African culture. And I have this deep, maybe it's called a bias, but there was something about Bob, okay? And when I trailed back through the knowledge and it led to Selassie, and I understood the dispute with Garvey. And when I went through all of that, this is 25 something years ago, when I was going in on this stuff. And I now know that still it's for real. It's for real. Now my question to the rabbi is, though, I have a question. So this is kind of my closing. What is the sacrament of a Rastafari? What do they utilize something? Do they believe in a sacrament that they burn, if you know what I'm speak of? Is that something you would honestly speak to?
It's something that can be spoken to, but perhaps we can find a platform. I don't know if you're on WhatsApp.
Okay.
We can find a platform because it's a little more involved, but generally speaking, the herb is viewed as a sacramental, like as a sacrament,
Right.
But over time and popularization of things, some things kind of get left out and some things creep in. You know what I'm saying? So
Gotcha.
that's why it will be a little more.
Thank you so much. I didn't want to drag this out. Thank you so much. I just want to make a quick shout out to the Cetros Foundation, and don't forget their GoFundMe page. Folks, this organization has been around for years now. It's been doing great work, and you can see the evidence by doing a 3.5 hour long stream and have been cut out twice, and still at their time of hour, at their time of night, have the energy to keep this going. So, folks, I want to thank everybody, Newbie, me, and everybody, and the gentleman that came in earlier with some great discussion. And once again, folks, everybody here that knows about Rastafari knows that it comes from the goodness of your heart. It's goodness. So thank you.
Wow, thank you so very much, our honorable Chukwudi Nwobodo. Okay, and now we move over to you, Madam Newbimi.
Yes, and then we have Alonso here too. So quickly, Jim, just wanted to say about the cannabis sacrament. I know the rabbi does not believe that everybody needs to be in that. So that's another discussion we could talk about, which will be a very enlightening conversation, because not all cannabis is the cannabis of the old time. This current cannabis that's happening, that's being commercialized, is crazy. But not everyone, it's not, the sacrament isn't like not necessary. You know what I mean? Like not everybody needs it or need to engage in that, because it may not be for everyone's good psychological health and well-being. You got to have to be in like a pure mindset. Anyways, on that, I just wanted to say that, and then we can have a whole nother conversation about that. That'd be a great Cetros conversation later on about cannabis, cannabosis, the history, and what's happening right now with the commercial, and anyways, the manufactured ones. But anyways, I digress. I just want to thank everybody. I thank Cetros. I thank Ras Yahdon for coming through. I thank everyone for coming through. But most high, I want to also remind people, we didn't really get into it, that His Majesty always guided us and guides us as Rastafari to Yeshua HaMashiach. We want to make that clear too, that ones know that and that's a whole thing with the Mashiach Davidic line, the Mashiach of Aaron, the Mashiach of David, but we could get that into another thing. I just want ones to know that His Majesty always guides us towards the Bible, the Ten Commandments, and definitely Mashiach as our Redeemer. I look forward to that. And then my last input is I hope that perhaps the Cetros would talk and build a little bit more with Brother Ras Yahdon with the Lion of Judah Society, to have an online or a Zoom theological class that really would get this next generation really, like, and I hope that Ras Yahdon and the other disciples of Lion of Judah Society would be possibly open to teach Hebrew, Amharic, biblical literacy, and a whole bunch of wonderful things to the next generation of Nigerians, Niger, East Africa, the whole Ethiopian continent, also known as Africa. So, and I look forward to being a part of that.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so very much. I want to say Madam Claudia, Madam Nubi me. Thank you so very much.
Good
It's
night,
nice.
Claudia.
Okay, Madam Claudia is saying good night from there. Okay, is Dr. Alonso there? Is parting word?
I think he parted. He's like working with the baby. So I think he says
Oh,
my main. And again, I just want people to know that again, ones and ones, Brother Ras Yahdon has been our teacher for over a decade, 12 years ago. And this is how I met Brother Alonso. I was in
wow.
Mexico, he was in Southern California, and we were all, along with a lot of other ones that he've learned. And Brother Yahdon has different channels, and there have been channels that had so much information and shut down. Just want to say, but Brother, I want to also give thanks to Brother Ras Yahdon, but the most important person in Brother Ras Yahdon is I want to give thanks to Sister Tahitana, his beautiful Ethiopian wife, who runs it, and makes sure
Wow.
Rabbi stays on
Wow.
point. So I want to thank Sister Tahitana for getting the streamline and everything going on and getting all the information. And we thank you, Sister, because you always have been that, you and Joke, because she's no joke, that quiet, strong sister that help our brothers keep it together. So I appreciate you, sisters, and I try to keep it together over here. But Brother Ras Yahdon has been with us for like over a decade. Do you want to say
Wow.
something, brother? He's good. He said he's smiling. I think he agrees. They want to hear
Wow.
your voice to make sure I didn't smuggle you away. You want to say hello? You want to say goodbye? Just say goodbye. Bye. Or whatever. Just one last, just to everyone, please.
Oh, nice hearing your voice. We
Oh,
are so,
all
we are
right.
so.
I'll I'll say we're deeply thankful and grateful that, you see, when you're a Rastafari, like, there's no way around it. You know that His Majesty is a devoted Christian. You know that the Bible is the foundation, but it's very difficult to make sense of, and it can be scary. And thus you can see like all these Rastas running around like claiming that the Bible is not real, that they have nothing to do with it. So it can be challenging to reach a point in which you accept something that's true, that's physical, that's real, but it's very confusing as to how to make sense of it, because then it incorporates elements like Jesus Christ and the Bible, so because the Most High sent individuals, for a long time. The one that I know of, Ras Yahdon Teferi, our brother Yaron, he was we learned ways to think and ways to find out for ourselves, ways to go about studying, ways to go about receiving a higher form of education, yet ways to research it. So basically we give thanks that the Most High sent individuals such as Ras Yahdon Teferi to like to help to guide us into clarity, and then confirm it and realize it for ourselves as individuals in turn. So like um up until then, making clarity out of the Bible, Jesus Christ and His Imperial Majesty, was a bit difficult. Nonetheless, it's individuals as in Himself that help bridge the gap and bring to oneness the what is that, the first power of the Trinity. I mean, what can I say? So we give thanks, Yadam, like for all that.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so very much.
Oh, and let me just add, actually, and because of that, like I then became it, an individual that the Spanish speaking communities around the world likewise were desiring to one day receive, someone that could make sense of all this, because they knew the Bible had everything to do with it. They wanted to accept Jesus Christ. They knew Haile Selassie is good, but how to make sense of it. And so then I became an instrument through which the Most High could then translate information and everything that goes along with it to all the Spanish speaking peoples in the world. And let me tell you, I mean, people told me straight up, oh, we've been waiting for decades for the day that someone could explain this stuff, like for our part, he opened up the doors for a more complete, more precise reception of the revelation of His Imperial Majesty, Haile Selassie first, to more than just the people he could reach, but even to those that he could not through us, so like.
And the Francophones.
So yeah.
Okay, we are so grateful for you. Why am I calling him Dr. Alonso? I'm giving you doctorate from Africa. Okay. So with that being said, we move
There's
over.
only Dr. Ojo. There's only one doctor on this show.
So last but not the least, we have our rabbi here.
Give thanks. I was thinking, what should I make the summary words? Should it be His Majesty's words, or should it be from this book? Once again, I would definitely recommend this book. It's a small book, but from my own study of many books in English and Amharic, some in Hebrew and other languages, this one really encapsulates some of the main points in short, simple summaries. We need to get this book translated into Spanish and into other languages as well. What I like to just share right here, just at the fulfillment, is what I began to kind of paraphrase at the beginning. Ras Tafari is a name that is familiar to many, but understood by few. We as Rastafari would say understood, understood, overstood by few. Most people do not know whether it refers to a man or a movement. The answer is both. At this time, the legendary tradition referred to as Rastafari has become an intricately interwoven fabric of fact and folklore. Perhaps the most revealing way to understand, to understand, to overstand who or what Ras Tafari is to listen to the words of His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie I, and I will add, and to look at his works, match the words and the works. So this is where I would like to just kind of close with this from the first part of her introduction right here, because when I read this, it really helped me. And there's so much more in this that we can go into that speaks on the connection of God and the Ethiopian, biblical, African interpretation. Ethiopia represented from before 1975, the ancient Black and African Judeo-Christian interpretation. And this book really brings it out very well right here. I want to mention this again. I can't mention this enough because it's a small book.
I would really love it if you did a show on that, on the Cetro show. Just explain this book. That would be mind blowing.
I mean, just to share at the outro, just the chapters. It begins off with an introduction. It goes into the legend of Solomon and Sheba. It speaks about discovering Jah, the earliest descendants, Nubia, the land of gold, Cush, rules ancient Egypt, the island kingdom of Meroe, Abyssinia, the Falashas, nature worshippers, the advent of Yahweh, the ancient city of Aksum. That's chapter 2. In chapter 3, it says power of the Trinity, the first Christians, Solomonic magic, reveal of the light, the Ethiopian Bible, monophysitism, the divine within. That's another point as well. it's not just that God is there and Christ is there and he's coming, but the connection with the teaching of his majesty and the practice of his majesty was that Christ is in us. God is in us. So that which we do that is good is God. You know what I mean? So it's not like we're waiting for God to come from the outside, but if we receive it, he is working through us, you know, and through our actions. It speaks about fasting and prayer, and it goes into many aspects, and then it touches on Rastafari. It's chapter 4 that it really introduces the man, Rastafari, Edamawi Haile Selassie. And it gives us a background that connects with the best of both the African tradition and Ethiopia's perspective of the Bible. And I think that's what sadly was missing for us as Black people in the West, and also for our people on the continent, is getting a Afrocentric view of the Bible, not just in words, but looking at Haile Selassie in Ethiopia, we get to see the words and the deeds, and not just Haile Selassie, but those who respected him and even venerated him or had a good regard for him. They were inspired, like Bob Marley, for example. When you mention Bob Marley is like Paul in the Bible, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? You know, he was one that may have not been there with Haile Selassie, like physically, but could articulate to Jew and Gentile, to those who are connected with this or have an identification, and to others that may not have a physical identification, but has a spiritual hunger and search. I'm
but
going to sit up right there
but
because we've been
Jew.
for a moment.
What do you mean by Jew and Gentile? What is that supposed to mean? Like
Oh, okay. When I say
Rastafari.
Jew and Gentile, Rastafari clearly began off, at least in the West, as a movement of Black people fighting against racism, colonialism. Some people call it white supremacy. I call it white inferiority, posing as supremacy. But, you know, it first came to Black people, basically. But it was not limited to Black people. It came to the most downtrodden. You know what I'm saying? You know, to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. When we say Gentiles, we're saying other nations. We identify ourselves as Ethiopians, as Rastafari. You know, even in my present position as a duly elected national president of the Ethiopian World Federation, we identify ourselves as Ethiopians. But there are other nations of people, you know, that are inspired by the light of His Majesty and by the light of Rastafari. So that's what we mean by Jew and Gentile. Those who have, we say we have an ethnic connection. That's why we went into it with our brother from Nigeria, you know, when he said we're not African, so forth and so on. You know, that might be his sentiment or his feeling or what he derived from something that he heard me say or heard others say. But that's what we mean by Jew and Gentile. You know what I mean? I hope that can explain. It's we as Black people saw the definition of Black in a dictionary to mean Negro, and Negro in the dictionary was defined as Ethiopian. And this is where we had not just a spiritual connection, but a physical connection. You know what I'm saying? But it's not excluding good people of other nations. You know what I mean? That also oppose the injustices of even a white racist system. So that's what we mean by Jew and Gentile. In other words, Jew, speaking of the people who identify with the ethnicity as Black people, as African people, and to other nations, right? Other nationalities of people, right? That brings us together as Rastafari in the spirit of His Majesty. For example, the unfiltered philosophy. Many people sometimes quote this speech to say, well, we shouldn't talk about Black, or we shouldn't talk about Ethiopia, but it's clear His Majesty said, we Africans. So he was speaking a message that was directly for African Black people initially, but it's like a pebble in a pond. It has the epicenter, but the ripples and the waves goes to the ends of the world. So that's what we mean by Jew and Gentile. I hope that explains, Gene, without being longer winded on that.
Okay. So We want to really appreciate you. I don't know the best way to appreciate you, Rabbi, for being on our platform and giving us a very clear, down to earth explanation of all the gray areas with respect to the Rastafarian culture, belief system, their politics, and linking it up to the events presently going on the soil of Mother Africa.
Mm.
To all of you that will be seeing this video, we want to appreciate you. And we thank those that have joined us from beginning to the end and those that joined for a while. We really thank you. Be sure we are going to be here next Sunday because it's every Sunday we bring up new topic, see what we can learn from it, educate our youth, educate our adults, and see how to provide solutions to challenges that might be lurking around. So from all of us at the Citrus Foundation, the Citrus family, okay, Jim
What's
has
it?
something to say.
Just a interesting topic I want to bring up for a future show. CBDC here in America, the central digital bank currency, and not only that, I think we discussed this. I think one time in one of your videos that you had before about they are actually rolling out their test models in Nigeria. And I've heard down the upwards to 60% of Nigerians are actually using crypto, some type of form of crypto. And I think that would be a great show because it would involve a lot of topics, and I think that would be a great show. So thank you very much, everybody. I gotta go. I'm gonna make dinner.
Don't go
Miss,
yet, Jim.
okay,
CDBC, is that what you said?
yeah, Central. Yes, yeah, the
Digital
Central
Bank.
did yeah, CDBC, Central Digitalized Banking Current, crypto. You'll look
Central
it up.
central bank
Yeah,
digital currency, I believe it is.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
okay,
yeah. That would be a great topic.
okay,
That topic is excellent topic because they rolled it out with you guys first,
okay.
and just want to let you know on that one. But thank you. I'm sorry and once again, cetrosfoundation.org and their GoFundMe page has not been put up on a link yet, and got to put that up there real quick. Bye.
Okay.
Thank you,
Okay.
Gene.
And Jim's Rumble. Jim has a Rumble too.
Okay. Now, with that being said, we want to say thank you, everyone. This is like 2:34
3 a.m.
a.m. in
Mm.
Nigeria. We are
Wow.
actually staying midnight with our
Mm.
bouncing, with
Two,
our
three,
bouncing baby
one,
boy.
3, 4. That was the
Yeah.
lesson. It was 2, 3, 4. That's why. Great lesson.
So, from all of us, we want to say thank you so very much, Rabbi. We appreciate
Thank
you,
you.
Jim Mobodo.
Thank
Thank
We,
you.
you. Thank you,
we
okay.
love you.
Yes.
Love
Thank
to everyone. Till next week. Bye bye.
you.
Thank
Bye.
you
Bye.
so very much.
Yeah.